Oh, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our October board meeting. We are ready to start. We check sound. So I'll begin by acknowledging and respecting the Indigenous people within whose traditional lands we are meeting today. And I'll seek a motion to adopt the agenda. Thank you, Maine. Thank you, Weatherhead. Any additions, corrections? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Adoption of minutes from September. Thank you to Boone. Thank you, Tierney. Any corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, we're very happy to have our delegation today, Rural Community Immigration Pilot, Community Futures. Come on up. We have Andrea and Rebecca with us today, and we'll get Christine, you're going to show the presentation. Thank you so much. Are we good to start off? You are good to start off. There you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having us. I've had the pleasure of presenting to you a few times, but Rebecca Richards might be a new face for you. So Rebecca is the coordinator for the Rural Community Immigration Pilot, and so Rebecca replaced Eric Rooney, committee. So you may be wondering why somebody from Community Futures here talking to me about immigration. So just a reminder, our mission is to support small businesses to be successful and communities to be economically healthy. And of course, a big part of a healthy local economy is having a secure, stable workforce. And so that's why you see us here today talking about immigration. So Christine, next slide. So yeah, looking back, you've seen us here before talking about the Rural Northern Immigration Pilot, which was the previous iteration of this. And with that pilot, we were able to fill 700 jobs across the West Kootenay, with 75% of those jobs actually being in Central Kootenay. We had almost 200 employers in Central Kootenay make use of that pilot. And with them, they brought many family members. So that number almost doubled. They brought another 587 family members with them. And what was really impressive is that when we surveyed them, 90% still live here and 80% are still with the same employer. So really good, strong results from the Rural Northern Immigration Pilot. And so today we're here to talk to you about the next iteration of that, which I'm going to pass to Rebecca to speak to.
Okay, next slide, please. All right, so the new pilot was launched in 2025 in June, and it covers all of the RDCK and most of the RDKB, except Beaverdell and Big White. So it's the same service area as the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot. It is currently the only community-led immigration pathway available, and the demand is much higher than the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot demand. This is because Canada has drastically reduced the number of immigration pathways for permanent residency across the country. And so there's considerable desperation on the part of immigrants to achieve their permanent residency. Employers are relying heavily on this pilot in order to retain their workforce in our communities. So we have had enormous demand from employers. We have currently probably around 150 who are designated to participate in the program, and we have another 100 that are in the queue being processed for designation. So there is enormous demand, and it is spread amongst all of the communities in the West Kootenay area. Applicants are turning to RCIP as their best chance for permanent residency, and it's a very competitive program. So I think we'll be talking a little bit more about numbers in a minute, but I will turn it back to Andrea.
Thanks. Next slide, Christine. So with the community immigration pilot, communities across Canada applied to have that pilot, and so Community Futures submitted that application on behalf of the West Kootenay. We're one of 15 communities in Canada that have this opportunity and one of 3 in BC. So we hold the contract with what we call IRCC, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. to implement this pilot in our region. With that being said, and I think you've probably heard me say this before, that comes with $0 for implementation. So great opportunity for our community, but a bit of an uphill challenge in terms of having the capacity to implement the pilot. In terms of governance, so what we do is informed by a steering committee made up of representatives of economic development from the West Kootenay, settlement services. So in our case, that is Columbia Basin Alliance for Literacy, and then Selkirk College, of course, with that connection with international students. So it's that table that helps us set priority sectors and priority jobs for implementation of the pilot. And then they also review candidate recommendations to discuss if they feel like that candidate truly has an intent to reside in the region. We don't want people coming here using this program to get permanent residency and then leaving. And so that's why those statistics from RNIP are so impressive that 90% are still here. In terms of funding, so for 2025, for implementation of the pilot, we've been able to implement it so far with funding from Selkirk College. So they came to the table with $50,000. And the reason they're willing to do that, or we're willing to do that, is, you know, that came straight out of their marketing budget. When international students are looking at where to go, especially in Canada, they're looking for a pathway to permanent residence. So the fact that they can have an RSIP or an RNIP logo on the Selkirk College website is a huge draw for them. I think it's no surprise that Selkirk College is having, you know, some challenges with changes in legislation. You know, the certainty of their ability to provide future funding is uncertain. We did talk to them last week and they will come to the table with funding, but we're not sure how much at this point. But they still see it as a real attractive for students. So we do see them still being involved in some shape or form. This year, yourselves came to the table with 17,000 and we really appreciate that. The RDKB came to the table with close to 20,000. And then we were also able to secure a little bit of funding from the Francophone Economic Development Society of BC. And so we use that really for startup costs to shape the pilot and to get it up and running. So our budget for this year was around 100,000 for implementation. And Christine, if you go to the next slide, just to compare that with how we implemented RNIP. So we secured close to $700,000 over the 4-year duration of that pilot. None of that came from local government. We didn't have to come to this table at that point in time. So our funders then included the province of BC through the Labour Market Partnership Fund. Unfortunately, the funding in that pot is much tighter than it used to be, so it's kind of dried up. We did have funding through a one-time initiative, which was the Community Futures Western Canada funding pot. So that no longer exists. ETSI provided us with some bridge funding to go between funders. And then for the last year and a half of the pilot, we secured funding from Pacific Economic Diversification, the new iteration of Western Diversification. But for them, their funding requirements are they'll fund an initial pilot, but not an ongoing pilot. So we're no longer eligible for that funding. So during RNIP, our annual implementation budget towards the end approached 225,000. And that allowed us to have a full-time coordinator, some part-time administration support, some dollars for marketing, et cetera, travel. But that was the reality of implementation of RNIP. So just to compare that, if we can go to the next slide. So where we're at today is our staff are dealing with significantly increased demand for the pilot and reduced capacity. So to illustrate that for you, with RNIP, in a typical year, we'd see 237 applications for candidate recommendations. In the first month and a half of RSIP, we saw 271 applications. So in 6 weeks, we saw the same as we would have seen in a year. In terms of employer participants, so over the duration of RNIP, we saw 138 employers participate. Again, in the first couple of months, we've had over 300 employers reach out and want to be designated as RSIP employers. And then our staff capacity. So with our larger budget, we had 1.5 full-time staff. We're currently operating with 0.75 staff. So Rebecca's role is half-time, and she's a very, very busy person, as you can anticipate. Rebecca, can you speak to like what kind of wait times or people are experiencing?
Yes, so employers designation is now taking to be on the safe side, I would say 2 months. It's a very simple process, but because my time is divided between community recommendation applications and employer designation, employers are waiting for a substantial period to have their applications processed. And then for community recommendation applications, at this point, it's 3 to 4 months before people are seeing their applications fully processed. They have to go through a couple of different stages, and it's very time intensive because we have a lot of responsibility for checking all of the eligibility criteria and making sure that they have their documents in place so that they have the best chance of applying for their permanent residency successfully. If we don't do that kind of background checking on the eligibility, we could be handing out recommendations to people who aren't actually eligible for permanent residency through the program, and we need to avoid that because our allocation of these recommendations is limited. I would just like to quickly add to Andrea's mention about 271 applications in 6 weeks. People were furious when it closed. So we could have easily seen probably another 300 applications in this fall because the demand is just that high for this program.
Yeah, so thanks for clarifying that, Rebecca. And so we've been given 200 recommendation spots for calendar year 2025. And for that reason, when the staff saw that we're sitting at 271, they made the decision to close the portal. So we're currently not accepting applications. And so what that means on the ground, if you're talking to employers in the community, is they may have an excellent staff person whose work permit is running out. And it's the difference, like us being able to process their application is the difference between that individual being able to stay in Canada and that individual having to go home. So as you can imagine, it's a challenging position for employers to be in. And also frustrating, right? There is kind of that line of sight of being able to keep that individual, but because of processing times, they may miss out on that opportunity. So that's some of the tensions that we're dealing with, and that you may hear about from employers in your. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to pass it to Rebecca to talk a bit about just the specific sectors and jobs we're looking to support.
Okay, so I'm going to try and stay out of the weeds and not bog you down in the details of the complexity of RCIP, but it is important to understand that this program is truly community-led. This is a program where we get to decide which business sectors are benefiting and which key occupations in our communities need to be filled. So the previous pilot was a lot more flexible. This one, IRCC is really pushing us to pick our top 5 sectors. So this year we've selected health, education and community services, sales and service, which covers the hospitality sector. So like a very key sector for this region. Trades and transport, as well as manufacturing and utilities. And you can see there we have a list of 19 occupations. And so eligible applicants need to be within one of these occupations in order to be eligible for RCIP. And the reason for this is that we want to be supporting our local economy in the way that's going to support it for the long term. So we're really focusing on these occupations where employers have difficulty retaining staff or difficulty hiring in the first place, because this gives our labor market a real boost in terms of attracting labor to these positions and making it more attractive to stay here in this region.
Next slide, Christine. I'm gonna give this
Oh,
one to you.
okay. That's fine. So, okay, I think this is a little bit of a repeat now, but essentially, I think at this point we're up to, I want to say 30 to 40 recommendations that have been issued as of Tuesday. And we currently have around 150 employers designated. And it's, I guess the statistic is specifically for the RDCK, so 120 from this regional district, and I think probably now we're closer to 30 on the actual number of community recommendations that are coming out of the RDCK.
Next slide. So, I feel bad coming to you with a slide that says funding request, and I just want to acknowledge that. I understand the position this table's in and the competing priorities you have, so know that, like, we don't come to you with this request lightly. As I said to the RDCK when we presented to them last week, I'd rather be here talking to you about another economic development initiative, so I just want to acknowledge that. So with that being said, I just wanted to say thank you again for the support the RDCK contributed to this first year of implementation. I think when we initially came to you with that ask, it was in the context of us applying for RDCK funding from the province and needing some local match funding. We weren't able to secure that RDCK funding because at that point in time, it wasn't confirmed that there would be another iteration of the pilot, and it wasn't confirmed that our community would be one of them. So I can see why for the province that was a difficult yes. But the RDCK had approved that funding, and so we were able to use that funding to help us this year. And because we had that funding commitment from the RDCK, it really helped our application to secure the pilot. They wanted to see we had commitment from our local community to deliver this. So you know, it not only were the dollars helpful, but just that commitment was really helpful in terms of bringing that to this region. With your upcoming budgeting planning process, I would like to ask you to consider a contribution of 40,000 for the upcoming year. We're asking the RDKB for that same number. And what that would do is enable us to increase our staff capacity to process more applications. So in terms of what's in it for you, what's in it for our region, it would increase our staff capacity to process applications. It would ensure our employers in Central Kootenay can continue to access the RSIT program to attract and retain staff. And long term, it's going to strengthen our local workforce stability in key sectors in our region. So if you go to the next slide.
Andrea, just so you know, you're at about 15 minutes. You have about 4 questions.
Okay, perfect. So this is my last slide.
Okay.
So in terms of what we're focusing on next is latest any applications approved by the end of the calendar year. We will look at making adjustments to the priority sectors and jobs for 2026. We're reaching out to past funders like yourselves and looking for opportunities for new funders to reach out to. And we're also leaning hard on advocacy to our MLAs and MPs around seeing the provincial and federal government come to the table to support us with this implementation. So we're actually meeting with Brittany Anderson later today to share that message with her. So that's our last slide. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And I was remiss in not introducing Allison McDonald. Allison's the Economic Development Coordinator for Community Futures and also provides administrative support to this pilot. So she really knows the ins and outs of this program.
Thank you so much. We do have a couple of questions. I just want to quickly check in. When is your deadline on a confirmation of funding? We don't discuss them at the same meeting, and it will be up to a director to put that forward that they would like to discuss it.
I don't have a hard deadline.
Okay.
I need to renew contracts with staff for 2026, and so the sooner I can do that, the better situation we'll be in.
Okay. So we have Vandenberg, Jackman, and McLaren Co. Vandenberg, go ahead.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the presentation today. It's interesting, you caught the note that IRCC, the funding is drying up, but yet they would like you to set priority jobs. I find that interesting. My question is around the funding opportunity. Have you looked at the employers contributing to the funding themselves? They're the ones that are in the need, that's the opportunity, they're highly motivated. I didn't see anything in the presentation on that, other than you have a lot of employers that are interested in the program.
Thank you for asking that question. I meant to speak to that. So we looked at charging employers an application fee. We were not allowed to do that by IRCC. We also looked at having them sponsor implementation of the program, and we actually had about 8 employers commit to that, around $80,000. But when the new parameters for the pilot came out and were required to designate employers to be a part of it, we felt that was too much of a conflict of interest to do that. And IRCC didn't want us to do that. So yes, that would be our preference. Just let the employers pay an application fee. They do it for other immigration pilots, but we're currently not allowed to do that.
Will be over time. Director Jackman.
Yep, thank you through the chair. So these, the previous program was 5 years multi-year, this one is multi-year again. And what it sounds like is you have an initial huge rush of applications, some of them being people who are already here, who need to continue their employment or to continue staying here. So when we look at budgeting, we don't want to take on the provincial and federal obligations for multi-year because that just tends to stick. So beyond 2026, and that's for 2026, we can anticipate a drop off on the rate of applications because first you have all the people who are here, then you have people who want to come here. Will it taper off? Do you expect your staffing needs to be continuous through the entire program, or will it fall back to maybe 0.7, 0.75?
Yeah.
Maybe 3/4.
Great question. So what will drop off, I think, is the employer designation. Like as we get employers designated, I think that'll evolve to a trickle. I would anticipate candidate recommendation requests being fairly consistent. That's what we saw through our NIF. People want to come to Canada, and this is a unique opportunity.
Thank you, Director McCranka.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, thank you for the presentation. I just wanted, for the table's benefit, I've worked with all 3 of these ladies on this and other things, and I just wanted to speak to the value of the program, our experience on the cusp, and how it does align with our strategic plan to support initiatives that enhance economic health of the region. In my time with economic development, the labor shortage is real, and it is definitely impacting our ability to develop within the region. And in terms of developing more of a tax base, it's helpful for businesses to expand if they have a bigger labor pool. My question, and maybe was asked by Director Vandenberg, is have you approached business organizations like Chambers of Commerce and things like that? Like not individual businesses, but other organizations?
Great question. We haven't approached chambers. I think in terms of dollars, that they're even stretched more thin than we are. And we haven't approached associations. I think that's something we could explore. But the other thing we try to keep in mind as well is how much legwork do we allocate to chasing funds, and where are we going to see the biggest return there? So, honestly, I think Chambers of Commerce might be able to contribute, $5,000, which isn't going to take us very far. But again, we welcome those suggestions for other funders that we may not have thought of, and we're happy to reach out to them.
Director May.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the presentation. Nice to see you here again. My question is around housing. I assume that these new people coming into the community are going to be having the same housing challenges that we all have and see here. And is there are there any specific ways that you are able to help them find secure housing? Or what is going on around that piece of it?
Yeah, and I'll start to answer it and then I'll pass it to staff, but most of the candidates that we recommend are already here, already living here and already working here.
Yes, so I can tell this group that we've seen 6 overseas applicants, and every single one of them so far has been rejected because the committee was not convinced that they had a strong intent to reside, and we have so much demand from the people who are already here, already settled, and already working businesses. And so at this time, housing has not been a concern because this program is really not so much about bringing in new people to the community as it is about supporting the people and the businesses who are already here. So we may see some of that as the years go along, but at this point, I would say it's very much within community.
And if I can just add to that as well, that's part of the employer's role, but the employer takes on a large role in welcoming the individual to the community and supporting their settlement. So often the employers will lean in and assist with that if it's needed.
Thank you.
Supplemental?
I had another speaker that I said no to, but I am gonna actually allow Director Lockwood to ask for question, and then I'm gonna ask Stuart to just explain, remind the board the funding request, how we manage those. Lockwood, your question?
Thank you, and thanks for coming. I know both of you. And my question is, okay, so when I look at the list of all the different areas for this area, there was 5 off of that list. 2 electoral areas and 3 municipalities. I know within my municipality, which is one that's not on that list, that there was 3 people that struggled through this program. And the reason is that the employer dropped them before they got to their solid. So how does anybody going through this program, does this organization make sure that the employer fulfills their commitment? So the people don't get 90% through and then all of a sudden get dropped and have to start all over again.
I can't answer specifics of that, but at a higher level, so the employers that are designated are required to go through some training to be a welcoming employer, a welcoming community, so that's something new from last time. And then really the only lever that we have is if we feel like an employer isn't operating in good faith, we can de-designate them, so that's something we have in our wheelhouse if we felt we needed to. And I don't know if either of you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, that's about the size of it, Andrea. Basically, if we do start to see employers who are not fulfilling their original intent that they put forward to us, we can surmise that their job offers are not genuine and therefore de-designate them on that basis, which discourages that kind of behavior. But then there are very, honest cases of like an employer reached out to me yesterday, just really upset because decided to sell the business, but now he's worried about these employees that were going to use RCIP, and I had to tell him, yeah, no, the applications are tied to the employer, not to the applicant. So as soon as the employer terminates for whatever reason, unfortunately, that's the end of that application. It can even be the end of the community recommendation. So there is a huge amount that is resting with the employer, and we don't have a lot of levers to try and force employers to stick with that.
I'll just speak to why some communities aren't on that list. I would say.
Can you come up here and speak, just because
Yeah.
our microphone's right in the middle there? Thank you.
We're still just in the first few months of recommending candidates, and so I think we will see more representation from those areas, but the stats are very early days.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your work. It's definitely incredible work. I'm familiar with some of the businesses in Caslo and D that have done great jobs in terms of bringing people in and those people being amazing assets to the community. So thank you for that. For the board's information, Stuart, can you just remind us when we get funding requests, how they are, what's the process for those?
Sure. Through the chair, it'd be best if you wrote a letter and then could send it to Christine and myself. It would be put on the next board agenda, and to the extent the director wants to pull it for consideration, it could happen at that time.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Obviously, you have a lot of things to do, so.
We're hosting a business after business today at Community
Okay.
Features from 5 to 7. So if anybody wants to come by, we'd love to see you.
Thank you.
More questions?
Thank you. We have all your contacts in the presentation as well. Okay, Director Cunningham, if you want to take your seat now, we'll all move back in. All right, we're gonna keep moving along here. We're good. We'll just let Director Cunningham and Director Graham get their seat. Thank you so much for making that space for the delegation. And sorry to the members of the public who came in, just in case you don't know, we will open it up to the members at 11:45 for any questions you might have. Feel free to help yourselves to a coffee and tea and snacks, and there should be an agenda right beside Jesse Woodward there if you'd like one.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. All right, we are on 3.1.1 recreation, number 9, Dr. Jackman.
I'd like to move the recommendation as for the agenda.
We have a second. Thank you, Lockwood. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Crescent Valley, Director DeBoon, do you want to do that one?
I'll read this in its entirety. Then the board directs staff to pause detailed investigation as per board resolution 457/25, being that the board approve funds in the amount of $13,000 to develop concept, design, and estimate for the renovation of a new RDCK office space in the Royal Hall, upper floor. And further, that the board approve an amendment for the 2025 financial plan graders for general administration service S100 to increase capital expenses by $13,000 and transfer from reserve by $13,000. And further, that staff be directed to finalize the feasibility study, including the investigation of properties not owned or leased by the RDCK, bring a report back to the RDCK board. And further, should any of the options impact services under the purview of the Crescent Valley Services Committee, that committee will receive the information for discussion prior to the RDCK board.
Second.
Thank you. So it's on the floor. I do want to let directors know the presentation that was received at the Crescent Valley Services Committee from the society is actually under item 8.2.1 in your correspondence. Just FYI, further discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And number 2, go ahead, Director DeBoon.
All right, the second motion is that the board approve the RDCK entry into a lease agreement with Crescent Public Library Association for the period of 2 years ending on May 31st, 2026, and that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents.
Second. Thank you, Vandenberg. Discussion. DeBoon and then Lockwood.
Okay, it may raise a question among the board, why we're doing a 2-year lease that ends May 31st, 2026. The reason is, it's a housekeeping item that we could have and should have done earlier, but didn't, so.
Ask the answer.
Okay, good catch. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Castle Garden District Rec Commission.
Yeah, sure. And 1, that the board authorize staff to prepare a service establishment bylaw to the city of Casper and Area J to fund a walking track and arena service to fund RDCK, Casper and District Recreation Commission, the construction and ongoing asset management of a walking track and second arena at the Casper and District Community Complex.
Second. Thank you, Honegraph. Discussion.
Yes, Chair, I have something to say.
Can you, happy to have you speak. If you could please use chat or your
Yep.
hands. I catch you. Go ahead, David off.
I'll do both on the next one.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So I've been thinking about this and I shared my thoughts at the Casper District Rec Commission. It seems like pretty straightforward stuff, but when we're looking at potential projects and configuration, there is a component that would involve the need for service S22, which is our current arena service and other things, renovating the existing facility, and so there would be a capital cost to the Area I residents. So based on that and other thoughts that I've shared with the commission, I would have to vote opposed to this and be recorded opposed, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Dr. David. Further discussion, Jackman?
Yeah, as an observer from afar who happened to be involved in the Nelson Via conversation about struggling over what should pay and who should pay for what. We hear this over and over and over in the 17 years I've sat here. So do we need a service review to sort this out? Who's in, who's out, and why? Or do we keep hearing the voice of opposition on behalf of a segment of the population who feel there should be a different approach? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to sit here and continually hear the lack of agreement, consensus on a big picture issue like this.
Okay.
So we're gonna keep hearing this continually, or is there another path that should be followed?
Thank you. I do have McFadden, and we have a motion on the floor that's not specific to that. I would anticipate, should that be needed, that the commission itself would initiate that, but McFadden, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, not addressing that completely, there is nuance to that, it has been looked into. I don't think it'd be black and white to begin with, so I think we've done our best to find a middle ground for everyone involved, including not expecting a whole area to pay the $15 million capital, but using a full other facility. I think we've done a very good job, the city and Area J, at trying to come with a reasonable compromise. And we don't know what the new facility is going to be, nor will there be construction or upgrading costs of our existing facility, because the project has not been designed yet. So there's a lot of moving pieces. We've made a commitment to make sure that we're doing our very best to think about the whole and not do any of that. So I'm comfortable with this. I know the city and Area J have done everything we can to make sure that no one in no area is feeling like they are being blindsided or railroaded in this process. So yeah, I hope that you will support.
Thank you. So on the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So Chair, you've recorded me opposed.
Yes, Christine
Thank
got
you.
that. Go ahead, Director McFadden with the next.
Thank you. That the board authorize staff to prepare a loan authorized bylaw for the city of Castlegar and Area J in the amount of $15 million to be repaid over 25 years for the purpose of constructing a walking track and second arena at the Castlegar District Community Complex.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. Hannah Graf. Discussion. Newell?
Can I just clarify, Chair, is it really an arena with a walking track? Thank you.
Thank you. Director Graham?
Thank you through the chair, and just be a new director with a new director question. Does this not need to go to referendum for a purchase like this?
Stuart?
Through the chair, yeah, this is the first step in doing that. The board needs to do 2 readings before it can go to referendum.
Thank you.
Can I
Papa?
clarify?
Sorry,
Sorry,
speakers
hand
list.
raised.
Can you add Newell to the list, please? Papa?
Yeah, thank you. A question through the chair to Director McFadden is, I see, does this involve Area I at all?
No.
And the answer is?
It's Castlegar and J as per the motion. So no, I is not included in that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Newell?
Fine,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, Chair, I've got my hand up there.
Can I clarify the check?
Yes, go ahead. And then Director Davidoff.
I just think it's important, and Director Vega might be responding to this. The nuance is that some of the designs have included a joint wall between the new facility and the existing facility, and there's potential construction costs depending for that new wall of the attachment. And if there's any renovation that may come through our existing service. So there's nuances to it. None of those decisions have been made yet, though, and they will be made with respect for all areas and all services. So that would be the nuance of it.
Thank you. I'll go to Davidoff and do note that when we say we're borrowing for specific areas, I understand the nuances. I is not included in the 15 million, but obviously there could be additional items through the joint service. Davidoff?
Yeah, I think Director McFadden explained it very well. Depending on the design, if it's a standalone, that's one thing, depending on the design chosen. And that's why my concern is that there's been no decision made on the design, but it's kind of leaning towards something that's attached to the existing building with potential expenses that I know my constituents would not support, so I have to vote opposed to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Democracy. Thank you. Don't have, nope. Okay.
And that's recorded, Chair, opposed.
Yeah, I haven't called the question, but we got you.
Oh,
Thank you.
sorry.
All those in favor? Opposed, Davidoff recorded. Okay, keep going, Director McFadden.
Great. Number 3, that the Castlegar District Regional Facilities Recreation Parks and Leisure Service Amendment Bylaw number 3062, 2025 be read a first, second, and third time by content.
Thank you. Second, Hannah Graf. This is now the bylaw reading on this, so further discussion.
Davidoff opposed.
Yeah, I'll just note you're opposed to all of these.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. And opposed is Davidoff. And the next one.
Number 4, the Castor area indoor aquatic center service area amendment bylaw number 3061 be read a first, second, and third time by content.
Second, Hannah Graf. Discussion on this one. Okay, all those in favor? And opposed, David Off?
Yes, please.
Okay. And number 5, go ahead.
That the board approve the payment of the following grant from the Castor and District Recreation Commission, Castor and Areas I and J, S222, 2025 budget, Castor Parks and Trails Society, 55,000, and participants only weighted.
Thank you. Second, thank you, Hannah Graf. Discussion. David Off, you're unmuted. Is that just for an opposition vote or do you want to speak?
No, I'm just in favor of this, Chair.
Oh, you are in favor of this one?
Yes,
Okay.
of this one, yeah.
Okay, great. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Oh yeah, participants only, sorry. Thank you. Okay, great. Number 10, Area E, Dr. Graham, go ahead.
Thank you. I would move the motion that does presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Jackman. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 3.1.5, you have the minutes from the Remuneration Committee, the first meeting. There are no motions in that one, so read the minutes. For CSLAC, there are motions. We just missed them on the addenda. Christine emailed them to the directors, and I'm going to ask the chair of that committee to go ahead and start with those motions.
So, with permission from the chair, the items that didn't make it over to today involved 7.1. And that is the board authorized staff to apply for $10,000 from the Community Climate Transitions Innovation Fund from the Tamarack Institute to support the Rural Mobility Community Advisory Committee project, shared mobility programs, healthcare transportation, and further, that if successful, the grant income be allocated to grant specified amount and expenses to consulting fees account, both in A108 Development Services, Rural Mobility Community Advisory Committee.
Do we have a second? Thank you, Dr. Tierney. Discussion? Baba?
Yes, I don't recall that and further being moved at the CSLAC committee. I could be wrong.
We didn't actually read it out at CSLAC. We just separated the motions. So it was probably just noting what account it was going through.
And if I may, through the chair, I did ask for division. And we passed the first one. I don't know if we passed the second one.
We didn't. In the meeting, we didn't need division because the motion was not on the floor. So you just moved the one section of the motion. Yeah. I don't recall the motion. If it didn't include the account where it goes, that's likely just a catch that we have to always say where it's going.
Yes. In fact, if I may.
Yes, you may.
The second part of it was the $40,000 portion, which is not in here. So yes, it's a entering in the account which it affects on your motion.
So question to the chair. So what are we approving? The motion that was moved, seconded, and carried, and that on further was never moved or carried?
The 10,000 and the 40,000 were separated out. We only moved the 10,000. That's what we're moving today. The addition of the A108 was likely a catch by staff to say we need to see what service this is going through.
So we're not moving the and further.
We're not moving the additional item of 40,000.
Thank you.
Okay. Stuart, sorry.
Sorry, just through the chair, Christine sent an email at 8:42 this morning to the board, which outlines the motions that are being moved. And again, it does not include the 40 in that motion. Check your email. It's
And thank you. I did not check my email.
Okay. No problem. We missed it on the addenda. That's why we let you know the email had gone out by Christine only 12 minutes before we started. And thank you to the chair for working with us on that one. That being said, further discussion on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And the next motion that does go to the board, go ahead, Dr. Vandenberg.
Right, and so 8.2 of that agenda also did not make it through to today, and I should actually be reading this from my email, but I'm comfortable reading it from here. that the board authorize staff to apply for the Stream 2 grant from the Watershed Security Fund to undertake foreshore inventory mapping of the Slocan River for up to $150,000. And further, that if successful, the grant funding and related expense be included in the Community Sustainable Living Service S-105 budget, and the chair and corporate officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents.
Second, Director May, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to 3.17, Joint Resource. Director Jackman, you chaired that meeting. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So there are 5 recommendations here. Each recommendation is all vote. All 5 are either purchase of services or goods agreements. I would like them to all 5 as presented as a block.
We can do that.
Through the chair, yes, you could do that.
Sounds like you don't recommend it.
Second that. No, it's fine.
Okay. I think if we need to change anything, then we have to, it gets a bit complicated, but we can do it. Okay, done. On the floor. Does anyone want to pull any of them for discussion? All right, all those in favor? Opposed?
Sorry, but two.
Okay, Spike, sorry, did you want to pull one of those?
Yes, I'd like to pull, let's just see, the Tridem trailer and the truck.
That's the 3rd one.
Is that number 3? There's 2 related to the trucks for
Yeah.
Central Resource.
Sorry, I'm just jumping back and forth here. Yeah, that's number 3. And the trailer as well, the $400,000 basically in the 200 and.
So you're looking to pull both 3 and 4, which are Central Resource equipment acquisitions?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, one moment. So now we're breaking the block.
So move 1, 2, and 5
1,
as
2,
a
and
block.
5. Yep, through the chair, 1, 2, and 5 can now be dealt with as a block, and then you can deal with 3 and 4 individually.
Okay, great. So we're gonna move 1, 2, and 5 as a block. That was seconded by DeBoon. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And number 2, why don't you move it onto the floor, or sorry, 3?
I move recommendation number 3, and that's regarding the purchase of goods agreement with Dawson International Truck for the Trimax or roll-out truck maximum value $214,595, et cetera.
Thank you. Seconded Paige. Spike, you want to speak to it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm struggling to spend what basically is $750,000 without further analysis of efficiencies. That's basically it. The purchase, there's going to be maintenance costs as well, and it may be justified, but I just didn't see it in any of the documents that we were presented with yesterday. So I'll vote opposed to this.
Okay, we did have staff in the room at the time that I believe we entertained those questions. Was staff unable to give you that information at the time? Was it unsatisfactory?
In my mind, yes.
Okay. Jackman, go ahead.
Something that came to mind, you can't pursue every angle when you're trying to try to keep things going.
Yeah.
This was a previously approved or recommended budget item, so it would have been, I would expect, a fulsome discussion of the budget meeting the previous year, which is where I would have expected sort of the projected lifespan of the 2 not so old trucks, but how the mileage is ranking, how the long-term issues about, missing trips because of breakdowns and stuff. I would expect that detail would come from the previous year budget discussion. So I mean, I didn't ask this yesterday. We can put this off, knowing how valid or long these tender prices are, how long the prices are valid. But I'm pretty sure this is a previous budget discussion item, and that's what I came short of having a long enough meeting already through the day of asking. If maybe staff, there's 2 ways, put this off until you review the budget again this year, or you put this off until they look at last year's budget and bring it back.
So it is confirmed that this was approved in the 2025 budget for Central Resource, and there's potential that we discuss the details of that item in the Central Resource budget conversation, which perhaps the rest of the board was not participants in because Director Pike would have been in West. So that may have been where the miss was. We do not have General Manager Wolf here today, nor Amy Wilson, so it's up to the board. We do have pop-up on the list. Stuart, do you want to add anything?
No, through the chair, I would need staff to reiterate what they said yesterday, particularly Larry, if he was around, but I don't think he's here today.
Newell, you chair that committee. Do you have a recollection?
It's just moved and seconded.
It's moved and seconded. It's on the table.
Okay. We're comfortable with having it moved and seconded, the central committee.
Yes, we already approved it at the central committee. This is actually just the actual moving forward with the purchase,
And
but
we would like, you know, I mean, there's no reason from our committee perspective to delay this motion, notwithstanding board members' concern.
okay, thank you. And sorry, Director Popoff, I just wanted to go to the central chair to check in on the history on it. Popoff, your question.
Yeah, that is great, Chair. You've said everything that I wanted to say because budgets are generally discussed in Central, East, and West and recommended for approval to the board.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion on that item? All those in favor? Opposed? Spike is opposed. Thank you.
The move recommendation number 4.
Okay,
The board
Yes.
approved the purchase of goods and services agreement with Dawson International Truck for supply of the tandem axle having tractor to maximum value of $231,900. It's second.
thank you. Second, Director Newell. Also for Central Resource Spike, I assume same concerns because you pulled this one. Do you want to speak to it?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Thank you, Director Fike. Further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Opposed? Yeah, okay, Fike is opposed to that one as well. Thank you. Recorded? Just making sure. Okay, thumbs up. Recorded on those. Christine, how you doing? Great. Good, thanks. 5 was in the block, so we're good. All right. Membership and appointments. We have an external committee appointment to Nelson Public Library. This is for Area H. Director Popoff, do you want to make that?
Yeah, I will move the recommendation that the board appoint the following individual to the Nelson Public Library for a term to end December 31st, 2027. And the individual is Val Mays, and I'm grateful that she stepped up. Had a vacant position for a couple of years.
Thank you. It's been seconded. It's on the floor. Further discussion. Very grateful for all of our volunteers.
Could I? Discussion?
You could discuss.
Well, it's a sidebar, but while we're public and what have you, Area F is also seeking a replacement to Annie Holtby, who's done it for 6 years. And her 3rd term is expired, and that is the limit. We put it out in the newsletter, and we're actively trying to recruit, and I'm saying it at the public meeting as well, for the Area F representative for the Nelson Public Library Board.
Good note. Thank you. Area F residents, looking for you. Okay, on the Area H appointment, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 4.1, this is correspondence regarding the postal strike. There is a request in that correspondence. We do not assume you want to do anything with this, so I'll just see if there's anyone that wants to speak to it. They are on rotating return, FYI. I know because I checked the mail yesterday. It's very exciting. Although, oh, no vote on this one. We're good. Okay, bylaws. This is for 3rd reading. We do know why we had to rescind this and move back. Director Jackman, over to you.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. We're trying to do a few things for the long-term benefit of the water service, and by the time it goes down to the province, they say, we'll do something else. So there's something else that they want us to do. This is all the 3rd reading of the Sank Water Park Supply Distribution System Specified Area Amendment Bylaw 2665 be rescinded.
Second and Hewitt, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And now your.
Yeah, and so what they do want us to do, this is all, the Sank Water Park Water Supply and Distribution System Service Establishment Bylaw 2665 2019 be read a 3rd time as amended.
Thank you. Thank you, Hewitt. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. East Waste, this is for adoption. If there's questions, ask in advance.
Not question, we will have maybe staff explain this complex set of things that we're doing in the next East, as part of the next East West budget meeting.
Okay.
That we don't need to go into detail. What was provided to Joint Resources, almost overly 100 and some pages of what's going on. We want to have a sit down and see East Resource.
Okay.
Understand this, but I will move that the East West management subregion refuse disposal, recycling service, Creston landfill, phase 1C closure, and burn loan authorization bylaw 2971, 2020.
Do we have a second? Thank you, DeBoon. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Delmon Area G, this is also for adoption. Any questions before we move the motion? We got a question here and then we'll go to a move. Go ahead, Lockwood.
I just have a question and I'm not sure who can answer this, is there was two bylaws, 3057 and 3058. Is there any reason why 3057 is not on here also?
Trisha did join, would she know?
No.
Go ahead, Trisha, if you do know. Oh, no, she's there.
Apologies, I'm having, through the chair, good morning. I'm
Good
having
morning.
computer issues, so I only caught part of that. Can you repeat that question?
Go ahead, Lockwood.
Yes, we did two bylaws, 3057 and 3058, and just the 58 is here. So I'm just wondering where the 57 was. One was for the pool and one was for the recreation.
Through the chair, I apologize. I do not have that information. I did not get a chance to hear from Joe where or why that would be the case. My apologies.
Okay,
I think we'll
do it next time. It was because of budget, so that's why.
Okay.
But hopefully we can have it on for November and it will, okay.
Yeah, if we did miss it, we'll put it on for November.
Okay,
Thank you. You won't.
I can move it, sir? You can move it?
I'd like to move 3058, and then we'll do 3054 the next time.
Okay. Do you second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Trisha. And 3060, this is the permissive tax exemption. You have third reading and then adoption. Who would like to move that? Thank you, McFadden. Second. Thank you, Jackman. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And for adoption. Thank you, Jackman. McFadden. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So Strategic Priorities Fund, this is a motion we have to do for the application. We've already made it. We've already determined this. So this is just what they need in writing from us. Who would like to move that? Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Sorry. Craig.
Sure.
Yeah, it took me a moment to recognize you. You weren't on a screen. Is there, I'm so sorry.
Been sitting here quietly working through.
Yeah. Was there anything you needed to add to this or we're good?
Oh, no, through the chair, it's just the resolution for the SPF wasn't sufficient for their needs. That's why this is in front of the board.
Okay, thank you for being here and sorry I didn't acknowledge you earlier. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Yes.
Just through the chair, just looking back at the agenda from September, 3057 bylaw requires ministry approval before it can come back to the board. So that's why it's not on here. 3058 could be done by consent. So it's just at the next meeting.
That's fine. Thank you for that. I thought it was already called.
Thanks, Trisha. 6.2.1, so we had referred this one knowing that Stuart and I were going to meet with the EMCR at UBCM to discuss this. Those notes are they're in the finance and admin section for all of our meetings. Overall, it was, I think, an interesting conversation to have with staff at EMCR regarding what this means. The information we had received back was that there was one area where they put a SOL in where there was issues from the council, and this is kind of what perpetuated this being included. Our response was essentially that it's not a good metric to change how we do things. I can confirm that through the local government advisory committee for EDMA, called LGAC for EDMA, that I am a participant on. They did confirm they're going to bring this forward to that committee for discussion. All the input that we provided based on board feedback. So that committee will discuss it within the context of EDMA. But at this time, it is as it is. The policy from September and the designation matrix has not changed. We kind of knew we weren't going to get any changes within one meeting at UBCM. That'd be quite lofty. Stuart, do you want to add anything?
No, through the chair, they seem to be focusing on this 5-year review period for EDMA. So any complaints or issues or concerns in terms of what this looks like on the ground are not going to get dealt with until at least that 5-year review period. So it is Definitely something where you get the feeling you're being heard, understood, and borderline agreed with, but they're still not willing to take a look at things until that review period.
So the part that is in addition to that, that I think did change their mind a little bit in terms of waiting for the 5-year period, is that we, as part of that committee I'm on, which we met last week, they indicated in that committee that they're gonna bring forward our input as part of that committee's review, which directly inputs into the regulations, which have been delayed a year. So I think they are considering it in advance of the 5-year review that Edna would be under. So I think we made a good case. So on the speakers list, we've got Newell, Popoff, and Weatherhead. And we do have staff in the room. Nora or Dan, did you want to add anything to this at this time, or just available for questions? Newell.
As I recall the conversation and discussion at the time, there was like, oh my goodness, we can't bring a whole council together to make a decision on a fire that's swooping into a town. And then Nora and Dan helped us understand this, that there are other circumstances that would be better not having one person decide. So how did we land as a board? Like, I don't think we decided ourselves that we wanted one or the other. Is it possible to give a 2-sentence summary of what we said?
So within the policy, and one of the questions to EMCR was, could we have, what we asked EMCR to consider was a definition, or sorry, a requirement that's based on imminent versus longer term review. So that will be part of one of the considerations they take forward. But I believe from staff's perspective at this time, the policy addresses what we need to do at this moment. The kind of practical end of should we be in that situation is that draft email we sent to you in August that just respond, don't respond. And the chair at the time, once you've hit send, you've done your due diligence, and you can put a timeline on based on the imminent threat. You got 10 minutes, you got 20 minutes, you got no time, we went tactical, or you got an hour or a week. So that's where that information will be housed. Dan or Nora, do you wanna go ahead, Nora?
Yeah, through the chair, I think that summarizes it. Like it's the reasonable efforts piece that's the Edna that we're trying to address. And then it's the ESC director and the subject matter expert that are informing, you know, do we have 30 minutes or do we have 3 days to affect those ones somewhat?
Good, Nora? Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank yourself and for meeting and expressing our concerns on this. It just creates another step in declaring state of emergency, of local emergency. And haven't had state of local emergencies in RH a few times or whatever, that extra little delay might kind of, expand the emergency a little bit further. So my appreciation, I know we have no choice, but adopt the policies as we are. But I do thank you for making that presentation, and it was generally the chair and the director involved, and well, naturally staff.
The one we don't have to mention, yeah. I will note that one of the pieces I really presented to them, and sorry, I didn't acknowledge Director Weatherhead joined us in that meeting as well, was that while they can create policy that's ideal when it is a political representative in that chair, you're really putting it up to a subjective conversation that should not be subjective. In that moment, I would, if it's a 10-minute imminent, we're signing, and I'll just hit send and I'm done. But that is a subjective personality aspect that I think is where we try to highlight there's flaws in the system. Weatherhead.
Thank you, the chair, through the chair. In that time frame that you're designating, in that moment that you're sending out that email, my only question was around, will you be relaying to directors, would you be relaying that you have 10 minutes to answer?
Yes. So the email format we put together, which is kind of like a draft, and by all means you saw it, I think, in August, so I can imagine you don't recall, but that was one thing that I met with staff. This is when Stuart was away, to kind of craft what does that email look like, and we noted the things we needed to include, primarily how much time do you have, and then that gives the board the understanding of, okay, it's 4 hours later, whatnot. And I'll just assume you guys will stand up or say if you want to add to it. Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. Slightly off the topic perhaps, but I noticed on the news this morning that we're gonna have an earthquake at 10:15. And that is a province-wide, yeah,
Really?
yeah, and it was on all the news, and apparently everybody's supposed to participate. And I was wondering if we were informed of that, and are we to participate?
Staff?
And I know you're saying it now is because it is after 10.
Well, we're not quite at 10:15. I missed that. Dan or Nora, do you have any knowledge of this?
Thank you through the chair. It's a great provincial program that looks at earthquake preparedness. There are areas that are much higher risk than the regional district is. So we haven't typically participated in that preparedness activity, so, but it is a great program.
It is indeed, but I participated in this, some elementary school participated, elementary school football participated, even around here. I was just wondering, thank you. 10 minutes.
Okay.
You will ignore that, thank you.
Director Jackman, and there is no motion on the floor.
Thanks. The
Thank you.
obvious, in my mind, stuff that's imminent, something's on fire, slide, water's coming down, whatever. This is all good. But still in the back of my mind is what else has been written into the legislation? What if there's a community event or gathering? And the perception of some may be getting out of hand. That we shouldn't touch, that we shouldn't be trying to get an opinion between us. Is this going to become an emergency situation? It's an RCMP or policing situation. That's what really bugs me. And this process be totally ineffective. There's no way we'd have an understanding of either imminent or an ongoing event as to whether or not that justifies us getting involved. And that's the continued pushback we need to give. That it's just not our realm to make those kind of decisions around public safety and policing at that level. But it involves individuals and actions that we're never gonna take. We're not gonna arrest anybody. You can take action, the CEO can take action and say that excavator's going from here to there. That's stuff we can do. But when it comes down to the individuals and the behavior and conduct, we just need to keep pushing back on that. We shouldn't be in that loop. We shouldn't be polling the group to say, do we think this is a problem or not? It's just not our big deal.
So I do want to add that, and Stuart, please fill in the blanks here. We had a lot of meetings at UBCM. One piece that we did provide to try and define the difference between imminent versus when you might want to seek political input was the example of Shambhala a couple of years ago, where you have 15 to 20,000 people and you're on alert, not quite order, but you know that when you get to order moving 20,000 people, there's a whole other aspect that was the example I believe we gave to kind of define the difference between where we might have more time to consider and when it's not an imminent. I just want to see if Stuart.
Well, through the chair, I think I would add though that we still, in a situation like that, even though it might be out of the normal course, we still work with BC Wildfire on their subject matter experts to say, look at the population we've got in this area. Maybe your lines are a little bit further back than they otherwise would be because of the access and egress and issues we've got logistically. So it's not something where it would just fall on us because it's not a normal situation.
Supplement.
Yes, please.
That is within our realm. That's stuff that staff are used to dealing with, mobilizing and getting people out of an area, evacuation, whatever. What's not within our realm is to try and determine if there's somebody or a group or a cluster of people trying to incite a bigger activity, which might then be deemed under the new act an emergency. And that's the stuff we just need to stay away from entirely. Because that's an individual activity thing. It's not force of nature and the wildfire coming down. That is a few people who have in the past and will continue in the future to try and raise a level of hype. And we've seen it in Preston Room with the Preston Rec Center with the last couple of years, where I'd heard people saying, oh, we should call the RCMP. Those are the things we need to stay with.
Dan?
Thank you through the chair. I absolutely agree. And what's very helpful in EDMA is that they've articulated very, very clearly what defines an emergency. So it's quite specific in where we would be potentially declaring a state of local emergency to access additional powers through EDMA. So that's really the question that staff sit with and that subject matter experts sit with. Do we need to access those additional powers? When it comes to the matters that you're describing, when I look at the definitions of an emergency within EDMA, that probably wouldn't hit any of the definitions. However, it might still be a police matter. So that's up to the police department.
Yeah. Thank you. Director Brotherhood, and if anyone would like to move the motion.
I was hoping to move them.
Oh, look at that. Second. Thank you, Hewitt. So the first one is the policy. Sorry, discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And for adoption. Thank you. And Popoff, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Dan, or stick around should you wish.
Yeah,
Go ahead, City of Nelson, you are next.
Yeah, the board received a letter dated September 25th, 2025 from the City of Nelson as an official request to withdraw from the Geospatial Information Services, and further staff be directed to prepare an amendment to the Geospatial Information Service Establishment Bylaw as written for September 2027 to adhere to the 24-month notice identified in the bylaw.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, Maine. Discussion. The report did outline the process. Go ahead, Lockwood.
I'm just wondering, with having different services, and it has nothing to do with Nelson pulling out or anything, but when somebody is not in the service, do they get and they're still sitting around the board, do they get same access still to that GIS? Like, or do we, as a regional district, actually charge out that any information? So if somebody's looking for mapping or whatever, and their area is not paying into the service, how does that happen around the board? Like, how does that happen with our invoices, I guess?
Through the chair, GIS has a fees and charges list where people are charged for maps or time, depending on what they're looking for. We also have special projects, which might be outside of that. So if someone was looking for, they're not in the GIS service, but they're looking for some work to map a certain area, we've charged extra for that as well. The public web map that's available to everybody, there's a portion of GIS that gets charged to general admin to support that.
Okay.
So that's a region-wide service that's provided to the public, and general admin contributes to GIS to support that.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Papa?
And thank you, Chair. I didn't see what the financial impact would be on the service, because Nelson was, if they're part of the service, is got a very large tax base.
Through the chair, that's an analysis for down the road in the future budget discussion. This is just receiving their letter.
And that directly informs why we have a 2-year timeline to work those details out. Yeah. Further discussion? Graham?
Thank you, through the chair, just a curiosity, along the lines of Director Lockwood's question. So if Nelson's pulled out and we're 2 years down the road, like, are we still, is the GIS department still updating the City of Nelson properties in the GIS system, even though Nelson is no longer part of it? Does that still happen?
Through the chair, we would get information from the City of Nelson once their system's set up.
So their system would be.
It would, to an extent, they're obviously going to use it for their asset management planning and things like that, which we might not have that level of detail, but particularly around addressing or things like that, we would definitely have the ability to do that, just like we do right now with Castlegar.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And 6.2.3.
Can I call for a order first?
We're not on 6.3.1.
No, 6.2.1.
We did that one.
No, we only did the first one. There was a second policy. You did it as an adoption rather than.
We did.
Both policies
We did
together?
both.
Okay.
Christine, you got both?
You threw me off with the adoption because it was not a bylaw.
Yeah. We did both. Thank
Okay.
you for paying attention, that one checking in. And 6.2.3 then is where we're at. So this is the emergency response and economic disruption research project, just an FYI for us. Is there anything you want to speak to, Dan? And or take questions?
Thank you, through the chair. All I want to highlight is that this is a great outcome that comes out of doing a thorough after action review. And this came from the groundswell. So this started at the community level, so grassroots, from from the impacts that were in the Slocan Valley. And through nonprofit organizations and community, there was a groundswell that came up. They contacted the emergency management department. We worked with Selkirk College, Community Futures, and brought this together. So it's just a really great way to show some of the resilience that can come following a significant impact from a disaster.
Thank you. McLaren Co, then Jack Mitten.
Just quickly, through the chair, I just wanted to thank staff for even entertaining the idea, because I was involved on both the Slocan and the McCusker Area K area. So yeah, great work, great opportunity to address an oft overlooked area after emergencies.
Jackman.
It seems to me years back, we did some sub-regional economic recovery planning. And I hadn't gotten to it yet, but I think my alternate was more involved than I was because of her involvement in business at the time. And so I think there's some historical stuff that we can dig out unless you already have those. I'll send by email.
Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you through the chair. Part of this intern's work is desktop research. So that would be through desktop research, it's looking at previous work that's been done, any reports that have been done, either through the regional district, through Community Futures, or through Selkirk College. So that part will get done.
Any other? Yeah, Vandenberg, go ahead.
So I'm interested to see how this is gonna play out, and we're gonna be talking about it again, but I can't help but wonder, is there an opportunity with the neighborhood emergency program to facilitate or add in to this as a talking point perhaps, or even a feedback loop opportunity, as you can see it, Dan?
Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you through the chair. I think that's great. The methodology, so they do identify that they want to look at 6 different sub-regional areas. The methodology isn't yet finalized on what approach you're going to be taking with that. I think that the neighborhood emergency preparedness pods or groups that exist across the regional district would be great starting points for that. I'll recommend that to the researchers. Thank you.
Any other questions? Looking good. Thank you so much. 6.3.1, Director Hewitt.
Chair, I, Director Hewitt, wish to declare at this time that I am not entitled to participate in the discussion or vote on the next item of business on the meeting agenda. That is item 6.3.1, by the reason that I am employed by Brenton Industries and that I wish to leave the meeting at this time and request that I record my leaving the meeting for the reasons stated.
Thank you so much. She has left the meeting. Director Graham, do you want to move the motion?
I will, but before I move the motion, I just want to thank staff, specifically Alex and AJ, for working with me for some extra language in this contract to ensure that we do not get damage to our road as a result of this project. So I will move the motion as written.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you, May. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Carol. I think we'll take our morning break and then we'll move into our very first early budget discussion.
Yeah.
Well, you should have started.
David Off, are you present? Hello, Director Fike. Director David Off, are you present? Okay, he'll be here soon. I'm just gonna ask Stuart to kind of give us an overview. This is our earliest ever budget conversation, so he's gonna set the stage and then we'll hand it over to Yev. Go ahead, Stuart.
Sure, through the chair, Yev's going to do an introduction as well, but yeah, this is by far the earliest the board has seen anything related to budget. We note that this is that first year where we're trying to move up the timeline, so staff's worked really, really hard to get something in front of you, so you can start to see how things are shaping up. I think once we had this in front of you in December, years ago, probably before this term, but usually the earliest you'd see services like this would be the board or the budget meeting in January. So I think the goal of this conversation is try to keep things a little bit more high level at that policy level. Numbers are far from final. Yev will speak to the approach taken from a conservative standpoint, rather than trying to keep things out of the budget. We're trying to provide you with things that could be in there, maybe looking for approval as we get through the budget season, so that you're not caught off guard by something down the road as opposed to knowing it now. So I'm open for questions as we move through this, but Yev's also got a presentation to go through as well and some comments from his perspective.
Thank you. So I think we'll do you want to do questions by slide or at the end, or just see as they arise?
By slide would work.
Okay.
So we don't jump too far ahead.
And I see Daryl's online as well. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, as Stuart's mentioned, this is a we're transitioning to earlier review of budgets as we discussed in June. So today we'll be doing a review or high level review of S100 and 101. General discussion, looking back, looking for feedback, questions, and potential requests from the board to staff on these two budgets. So the plan is we'll discuss those today, and actually service S105 beat us out of the gate. They discussed their budget on Tuesday, I believe. That was the first budget discussion of the year, and going through the various committees and commissions, we'll have budget discussions at that level, and as well in November board, we'll be bringing forward some of the other core services, S102, 103, and 104, and as well as A101. So GIS building and planning and emergency services. And then December, we'll have a list, probably won't be a complete list, but of capital projects that we'd be looking for approval so that we can start the procurement process and gain the advantages of an early procurement process for some of those larger capital projects, rather than waiting till April after the whole budget's approved. So we have a bit of a short presentation. So in the agenda package, the presentations included in that, as well as detailed budgets for 100 and 101. I'll just make a note, some of the items are placeholders in there. There's a few projects that we've included in the budget that we will be coming to the board for approval, and I'll speak to those in approval in January. So let's start go to the first slide or the second slide, I guess, on the presentation. Okay, a little tricky to read from here, but so basically general admin, we'll start with S100. So this includes corporate administration, finance, IT, human resources, CAO, and the municipal directors. The year-over-year requisition is fairly large, about 52%, just over $1 million. And this equates to about a $30 increase for a $650,000 one in the regional district. And what's primarily driving this increase is last year we had a fairly large surplus carried forward, about $950,000. This year, currently we're predicting about 200, so there's about a $750,000 reduction there.
Town of Creston, pulled out of our, IT service, program. So there's 85,000 there, $125,000 of inflationary increases. As we discussed, earlier this year, Unit 4, our ERP is, basically, mandating a move to the cloud, and that's gonna increase our license costs by 90,000 a year. And $50,000 additional over what we're spending this year for an organizational review. And 145,000 for migration to SharePoint for our documents and records management. However, the draft requisition is actually $222,000 lower than the projected requisition increase for 2026 in the final approved 2025 financial plan. And the CPI increases we're using for wages and remuneration is projected to be at 2.4%. Just a note on that, I checked yesterday and I don't know if this is related to the labor dispute, but the provincial government has not updated that table, the CPI table since July. So hopefully by the time we get to putting the whole budget together, we have those numbers updated. So any questions on this slide?
Director Newell, McFadden, Maine, go ahead, Newell.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe I'll state the obvious and harp on something I harp on. Could I clarify the first bullet of the second bullet? In other words, the $750,000 reduction? Could I interpret that as being that in 2025, we took $750,000 and put it into our operating budget to reduce taxation in 2025?
We took 900, through the chair, we took 950,000 and used it for various purposes. Yes, to reduce our largely reduced requisition. And for 2026, we're projecting a surplus of 200. So that's the $750,000 difference.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Supplemental?
Yeah.
I just underline that. Now we're dealing with it this year, not last year. Anyway.
Thank you. McFadden.
Thank you for the chair. Thank you, Director Newell. That's exactly what I was going to bring up as well. You've probably heard me say it many times. It is a poor idea, great across the board to use surplus for operating. This is the problem we get into. So to make sure, since we only have a $200,000 that you're projecting for this year, which is much smaller than this amount, I have two questions. One would be, where could that surplus go and stay? Because I understand regional district is within services, so that amount that's being brought in needs to stay within the same service. So what would be costs? Is there a capital component to general admin? That'd be my first question. I know you said to put surplus into instead of it being for operating. And the second question would be, if so, do you need a motion from this table that puts that that puts that into policy? That our policy from this table is that surplus only gets used. And the reason why I'm thinking that this year is the year to do it, a $200,000 surplus is a much easier catch up than a $900,000 surplus. So if we're gonna do it, then effective for next year, this is the year that I think is probably most beneficial because you're only talking about a $200,000 uptake for next year instead of, I would love to be able to say, hey, don't even use the $200,000, but when we're already looking at the amounts we're looking at. So those would be the two things. Is there an option for the service to have a capital component one-off costs? And if so, do you need a motion from this table to effectively going forward as of next year and onward that we do not use surplus for operating offsets? How do we make sure that is not happening?
Through the chair, good question. We talked a bit about surpluses at the CSLAC meeting on Tuesday. So it really depends on what's driving that surplus. So in this case here, it's $200,000 is driven largely by projects, not capital projects, but non-capital projects that we planned to do and didn't do. And now we're gonna do them in 2026, for instance, the Unit 4 migration. The other part of it is we had employees on long-term disability, so their wages were less than planned, and now and so those departments were able to do some of the work they were planning to do. So now we are going to bring some of that surplus forward to do those projects in 2026. So in a large part, this surplus here it equates to planned projects that didn't happen in 25, or work that didn't happen in 25 is going to happen in 26. So this will offset those costs. I think it makes sense to offset those costs in 26. When we had those larger surpluses, you know, looking back now, it probably would have been prudent to break that out. And some of those larger surpluses were driven by, for instance, larger earnings on our investments than we had planned, and then in the, you know, items like that, you know, probably have a potential to spread out or use in a different way. I think it was 3 years ago when we had, I think, about a $700,000 surplus. The board divided that surplus over 3 years, and we split that over 3 years and used part of that surplus last year. So there's a number to reduce taxation. So there's a number of different approaches we can definitely consider.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify something that and I want to make sure I heard this right. Currently, what the surplus is, it's being applied to short-term projects that would be only in 2026. So that is kind of a better practice than just to lower requisition. That's what you indicated? Okay, sorry, McFadden, go ahead.
Yeah, so then just to follow up on my questions, I don't know if they completely got answered. So what you're talking about, I wouldn't call surplus, I would call it rollover.
Yeah.
And separating those two would be important for us, is that if that $200,000 isn't a surplus, it's a rollover. These are projects we've already taxed or approved, we're just rolling them over to the next year, because that's a very different than a surplus. Surplus is extra money that we are anticipating spending and are not going to spend, right, which is a difference. And so going back to my point is, it's separating those two, saying if it's rollover projects, great, or if it's positions that we were hoping to fill and now we're going to fill them, that's different than actual surplus. And back to my question of how do we make sure that we apply, I would love a policy around this table that says rollover, fine, but any actual surplus does not get used for operating no matter what. It is used for, because you're still taxing for capital, but capital will always be one-off. It will never be an operating, and I don't like the practice because it catches up to you. Even if you spread it over 3 years, it catches up to you, and I'd rather use that for one-offs. So I would love to know, how do we get a policy around the table that says, that does that for next year? So that we kind of have some policy that gives you a staff direction, this is what we want to do with our surplus.
Go ahead, Stuart.
So the first point through the chair, it was discussed at CSLAC, and something that you and I actually just touched on yesterday is trying to separate that prior year surplus line to say, here's what's truly available if you wanted to put it against requisition, and here's something that is allocated. So, you know, the staff situation that you have mentioned is a perfect example. The long-term disability, you've got 6 months of work that's fallen behind. We are planning on hiring a temporary staff member to work through some of that administrative backlog, because when that individual does come back, they're not going to have the time to do 6 months worth of work when they get back. So we would want to allocate that surplus out. So we're looking at a way to try to show that on here so you can see the difference between those two. Over the years, we've been able to do that on a lower level. So if we went a level below this in our budgeting software, you'd be able to see if we allocate surpluses perhaps to a grant that the project hasn't been completed. We've got a work order for that. If we've got a surplus at the bottom that says 100,000 hasn't been spent, we roll it forward. It's in that prior year surplus line on this consolidated sheet that you see. But if you went a degree lower, you'd be able to see, okay, that's assigned to this grant program and we're spending it in 2026. That money's been allocated. But we're looking for a way to be able to show it on here so that we don't need to show you 17 sheets when we're providing you with this information. In terms of a policy, yeah, we could definitely do it. I wouldn't recommend capital. I would recommend something along the lines of non-recurring projects, something like that, because some of the stuff we're talking about is operating, you know, in the true definition of it, it's just not recurring. So something where you're not using a surplus to reduce an ongoing expense, and then the following year, you're essentially getting hit double because you don't have that revenue through the surplus anymore. But yes, we could definitely look into something along the lines of policy regarding non-recurring expenses. And some services, we could develop something where it's strictly for capital. Something in, you know, for fire services, that might be something where it's a good option to consider something like that.
One of the things when we talked about budget being earlier and kind of the input we received last year was, as we do this kind of like newer process of early direction of staff, is kind of capture all these things that we might want to put in policy. So that one's on there. And we did at CSLAC direct that we see a separate line item that separates actual surplus from allocated. So it definitely fed into where we're at today, and great point. I think we all agree on that one. Move that in further.
No, good, thanks.
Okay. May.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. Yeah, you mentioned that in IT, we're moving to the cloud, which incurs some expenses. My question is that solely owned by RDCK Cloud with their own servers, or is it held by an external agency? And if so, is that agency located in Canada?
Through the chair, so we've our two main movements to the cloud are to Microsoft 365, which, you know, the plan is to migrate our file shares to SharePoint as well. So the data centers where our tenant largely exists is in Canada, I believe in central Canada or around Toronto, but Microsoft does not absolutely guarantee that your data is going to be 100% in Canada, because of they need to have the flexibility to keep their data centers running. So, and then for our Unit 4, which is our ERP, Unit 4 is operating as a data center, or I should say a cloud operations center, and they utilize as well Microsoft Azure, and with the data centers in Canada, large, or they are in Canada, but again, Microsoft will not absolutely guarantee that your data will stay in Canada. They'll say that's where your data is allocated to, but there is no 100% guarantee around that.
Thank you.
Director David Opp.
Thank you, Chair. So when I first saw the numbers, like, just so this is out there, this is a 52% increase in general admin from 2,084,385 to 3,159,983. A 52% increase in requisition in 1 year. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this, right? And I have a question, I guess, to the chair, to our CFO. How is Vancouver looking at a 0% taxation increase overall for 2026? And are we looking at other jurisdictions to see what they're looking at doing? And this is just one budget. And we have all the other budgets to come. So is the strategy for the overall budget to reduce taxation everywhere we can? And Director McFadden made the comment about rolling over the surplus and not applying operating surpluses to reduce requisition. I don't agree with that, because if we have a massive operating surplus, we're not just going to leave it sitting there. We'll use it to reduce requisition, and should be, because why should we be taxing for something we don't need when we have massive operating surplus? So my prime question is, how is Vancouver looking at a 0% overall budget increase in 2026. And if this is one budget that we're looking at, and then we're looking at all the other budgets, this is going in the wrong direction here. So, question to Yev.
Through the chair, from what I understand, the Vancouver, that's a target set, possibly by the mayor. There is no actual budget that shows a 0% increase. I'll speak a bit to the difference between regional district and municipality. Municipality has much more latitude, because all their services are one big pot. They can, make reductions in recreation or whatever, and offset increases in other areas that aren't under their control. We don't have the same latitude of a regional district. Each service stands on its own, is taxed on its own, it has a different set of taxpayers. So we do our best to control costs in each service. But we don't have the flexibility of a municipality to offset increases in taxation in one service, with decreases in other services.
Okay, supplemental chair.
One moment, Stuart has further, one moment. Go ahead, Stuart.
Through the chair, I just also want to point out that the increase is not a cost-driven increase. If you look at the bottom line of expenses here, the expenses from 25 to 26 are going up by 1%. So it has nothing to do with cost increases. If you look at the budget from 2025, you can see that the pull from reserves is $750,000, and there's $498,000 in capital expenses. So $250,000 of that surplus that was pulled from reserves last year is going directly to offset taxation. So barring nothing else, you're looking at a tax increase of $250,000 right off the bat. But there was also another $700,000 in operating surplus from the previous year that was also pulled over for $950,000 in surplus. So again, everything remains the same. You have a 0% increase in expenses. You're still looking at a tax increase to fund the service to what it needs to be funded at of $950,000. So it's not the expenses here in this service that's driving the increase in 2026. It's the drop in revenue.
And in terms of the question I did look up the city of Vancouver and what they were proposing and how they were doing the 0%. They're cutting social, health, and a couple of other primary programs significantly. That's the proposal to get to the 0%, from what I could find, because I had the same question. To your supplemental, David, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the CAO with that, making that note. And I did see the difference from 9187 to 9283 in terms of the difference between the 2025 and 2026 budget. So I do appreciate that. It's just I guess the optics of a 52% increase are going to be noticed and utilized by some people to say this is what's going on in the RDCK. And I think the point is that we need to make it very clear that the increases from 9187 to 9283, as stated in the bottom of the account of the revenue side of the S100 budget, which is a little bit different. So I appreciate that comment. And I guess when we look at this, is there any way that we could reduce this further? Well, the only way would be by utilizing, I guess, part of the surplus to reduce it even further, and that will be a discussion when we have our final budget deliberations. Is that correct to the CAO?
Yep, through the chair. That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Grant?
Thank you. So through the chair, I will say that a 52% increase on behalf of the taxpayers is going to be like very not palatable and perhaps even outraged. It's just too much. And I do understand where we're at, which leaves us really only with one option that I can think of, which is our $2 million that we have in reserves. We have 1.9 in 2025. We're projected to have 2 in 2026. And what I find concerning about the reserves here is that we're planning to transfer 250 this year when we've got a 52% increase in reserves. And then we're transferring double that in the following year when we have a much smaller increase. Like, I think this needs to be revisited. And I just don't see, like, I just do not see myself going to taxpayers and saying, hey, sorry, we have a 52% increase. It's not our fault. If you look at our numbers here, they won't care. You know, this is money that's coming out of their pocket, but we need some kind of smoothing mechanism. And I think the only thing we can do here is the reserves. And yeah, also, I brought forward a question already. He had to sit beside me ahead of time. So of course I already asked him why we have 135,000 in grants specified that wasn't in the 2025 budget, wasn't planned for in 2026. So he was gonna get back to me on that one. But I really think we need some kind of smoothing mechanism here on behalf of the taxpayers.
Thank you. Feedback, so?
Yeah, through the chair, the reserves, I don't have the detail in front of me for S100 are broken in different categories. I think there's over $400,000 of that is specific to LG cap funding. There's asset management, $500,000 for this building. IT capital replacement projects is about another $400,000. So most of the reserves are allocated. There is no or limited stabilization reserve in available in S100.
Go ahead.
Supplemental, then I think we would maybe want to consider reducing our contribution to it. For this one year.
Go ahead, Stuart.
So through the chair, the contributions to reserves are 3 asset management decisions that the board's made in the past. However, informal, they've been done through resolution. $100,000 to the building reserve for this building, $135,000 a year to IT, and then the balance goes to vehicle reserves. So it's part of an asset management discussion. If the roof project that we just finished comes up and you'd prefer to borrow for 5 years for something like that with the interest costs, that's an asset management decision the board can make through policy. We were able to pull the majority of that from reserves and it's not impacting taxation. And it's the same with the vehicles. The vehicles, we haven't had a vehicle purchase other than a fire apparatus. We haven't had a vehicle purchase at the RD probably in 5 years that we've needed to borrow or otherwise increase taxation because that asset management plan is very, very solid. That once that vehicle is purchased, that department is required to take that number, divide it by 5, and put that into an annual reserve contribution so that at the 5th year, regardless of whether or not the vehicle is ready to go or not, we can still extend it, but it's available to purchase without going back for a large lump sum to taxpayers. So it's all part of, again, this discussion. It's about policy. If there's a reserve policy discussion you want to have, then now's the time to have it. Because yeah, we could definitely reduce taxation by the reserves, but you just have to understand what that means on the other side. It would either mean larger tax increases down the road as projects come up, potentially emergencies, or going to borrowing. And some of the IT uses that we have, you can't go to borrowing for. So example, 145 for the migration to SharePoint that you have mentions there, that's considered an operational expense. So MFA will not let us borrow for that, as opposed to servers, which we could. But now that we're going to the cloud, fewer and fewer things are available in the IT world to be able to borrow from. So it's a conversation. There's benefits to both. There's cons to both. We yesterday at Joint Resource, there was conversations around the need to borrow for all of that equipment and the rolling stock. And there was comments in the report from staff that said we are working on an asset management plan around these purchases so that we're not constantly having to borrow. Because if you borrow and then try to set up a reserve at the same time, you're paying for the asset twice. So when do you stop, or when do you bite the bullet to say, we're just going to start contributing to reserve as we're paying the loan, so that when we're done the loan, we can buy the asset outright again. But there's still a pain period throughout that. So it's all part of the same conversation with respect to asset management.
Okay. Jackman.
Sure, thank you. So I'll lead off, thanks you have through the chair. for showing us a path to only a 52% increase. I'm not being facetious, because we told the hundreds of people who came out to this Creston Valley budget presentation that this year would have a 62% increase on general admin. So does anybody not see that we dug our own hole, said next year you're gonna pay 62% more, and we're squeezing it down by 10%. So it's not zero, but it's an effort. And as both Yev and Stuart have pointed out, our baseline operating costs are pretty flat. Our political decisions are pretty erratic. So I'm 100% in agreement with Director McFadden. And there is a model on a couple of services that we do use for stabilization. We've done it carefully. So say we have a surplus, you don't say it's gonna do this or that, but policy, which we can override, and we do all the time. We say half of that true surplus. I mean, that's such an old conversation to not use the word surplus for ongoing costs that just deferred because the work didn't get done. But the true surplus, half of it goes for initial staff shows that half is a reduction in requisition, and the other half goes into the stabilization reserve for variable or high variability, for services with a high level of variability. Because of things like technological changes, needing to buy this and that, and $1 million a crack, I think general admin has become pretty variable. Our older variable ones, of course, are building inspection and tipping fee revenues, and they're tied. Economy goes up and everybody's building, we get a lot more money, but we gotta pay for 3 years of inspection or more for permits, because we extend them all the time. So we have a stabilization mechanism there, by policy that we can override, but at least it's an intention, a deliberate intention to do the right thing. Just like Stuart just pointed out, deliberate intention to have the vehicles ready, replace, roof to replace or whatever. So I 100% agree. So the other one, the tipping fee revenues goes up and down with construction activity. And so that's another, where it makes sense to be cautious with the appearance of a surplus. So if we do a policy, we will override it from time to time because we're good at that. But yep, we need it. And if it's a 50-50 split, that's the first, every year, first out of the gate budget, we would see, we'd say, here's maybe half of the money you might have here, half here. What do you want to do?
Please, Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. My question has to do with CSLAC the other day. We were talking about the fact that a number of communities are opting out, yet in fact, the service very often provides for things for everybody, you know what I mean? Such as the lake thing and what the future of CSLAC should be. One of the thoughts was that perhaps some of the parts of the CSLAC could do would be to general admin. This is just discussion, it has not gone anywhere yet. But the thought occurs that if it were moved into general admin, then CSLAC does a lot of granting, a study here, a study there. So this might be a way to be able to use some of these extraneous funds, in other words, and provide extra service on a way to the more closer to the way municipalities work. Is that a possibility? Just talking because the discussion has not come up, it's gone anywhere. But the question is that kind of thing a possibility?
The direction to staff and the CSLAC was that conversation would be held by workshop with the board and
No, I
members of
understand that.
CSLAC. So
The question is it a possibility?
Well, through the chair, that's the way it worked before CSLAC was created,
Yeah.
so it's definitely a possibility.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay, just director's time check. We got Lockwood, McLaren Cove, Annenberg, DeBoon, and I believe we still have 6 slides to go through.
3 more.
3 more. Okay, just FYI. Director Lockwood, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure that we were all sitting around here last year trying to figure out how we were gonna fill the hole that we dug deeper. And now we're sitting here and we've got a very big hole to dig, and this is one pocket of money. And thank you for whoever explained the difference between municipalities and regional districts. I do believe the general public does not understand that. I do believe some people around the table don't understand that. I, for one, can pull out of that reserve for anything and pay Peter to pay Paul to pay back. We can't do that at the regional district, and we need to get that education out to the public. So our rooms are not full as Preston and areas had, and I watched the whole entire thing of 400 people not understanding how regional districts work. It frustrates me that we are sitting here 3 years in, still looking at how to dig out a hole that was created from a 0% increase, how many years ago? That we sat here and said, we've got to protect the taxpayer, we've got to not raise the taxes. And today, 2025, we're talking about still digging out that hole from 3-4 years ago in 2026. That's all I have to say. Sorry. Just needed to say it, need to get it off my chest.
Thank you. McLaren Co.
Thanks, Chair, and I appreciate the time constraints, but just because we're kicking off the process here, I just want to take this opportunity to say a few things. Quickly, just appreciate the process itself, that we're doing it now and starting as many of us had asked to be changed, so I appreciate that. And I also appreciate that we're investing in an asset management process throughout the year and on to better handle our finances. I'm gonna echo a lot of what Director Lockwood just said. 3 years of listening around this table, I have a lot of empathy for the constant increase in taxation. The optics are often bad. 52% is it's not as bad as 62%, but it's a bad number. Just looking at that number. But what I've come to is in my mind is that even if we kept everything, I mean, ceteris paribus, like everything equal, just inflation and CPI increases, same services budgets are going to go up. So if we actually really want to, as Dr. Lockwood said, protect the taxpayer, we need to cut services. Like if we really need to drop, if that's really our goal, and maybe it's not, but if it is, we need to have difficult political conversations about what services we're going to start cutting. And that comes up often, and in 3 years now, the same conversations. So if that is really indeed our goal, we need to start putting things on the chopping block. I'm not saying that is, but if that's what people want, make some suggestions. And then my last point is just based on what Director Lockwood said. I've always advocated for better communication, more effective communication with the public, better engagement, better communication. Like Facebook ads that 3 people like in a region of 70,000 is not an effective way to connect with people. We have to get better education out there and better engagement from the public. I just saw Councillor Stoner from Squamish, for example, just happened to see something on Facebook where, setting up all kinds of coffee houses and people right now engaging with people from her community on the budget process. And that's just one example from the whole province. So communication, if we really want to keep taxes at zero or reduce them, we at this table need to figure out what it is we're willing to cut. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. And I just need to say, in terms of communications, we had 33 public budget meetings last year where we presented the pie charts that helped distill that, and we also share them out so that people can go and see them previously. So there has been a decade of improvement that I want to acknowledge on staff's behalf regarding communications and distilling the very complex matters of budget meetings. Doesn't mean they show up, but we've definitely put the effort in there well beyond Facebook. You're right, Facebook doesn't get us anything because of your government who looks at Facebook. Vandenberg.
Yes, thank you. So my question is around the reserve balances. So currently I'm looking at my copy is per 2024. So I'm just curious, is there a more updated copy that reflects what is current? And then the second part of that question, somewhat I guess is related to the reserve. Did we ever dispose of the backhoe and trailer out of the utility department, which I believe is a 113? And then therefore, does that number reflect the sale of those assets? So 2 parts. Do I have the most current reserve balance information? Just a question on the lower backhoe and trailer.
To the chair, I don't know if you can comment on I think that the truck was sold internally, I believe.
Yeah,
the tundra.
Yeah, through the chair, we'll speak about the excavator first. The excavator is currently on a commission sale program through Binning. So Binning's got it listed. We looked at a number of different options. The challenge there is once it's sold, most of the proceeds will go to pay off the debt. We might make $10,000 or $20,000, but that would be it. So that's the current status of the excavator. We do have more current reserve information than that, but through the year we have not completed all our reserve entries either. So usually at year end is the most accurate. So what you have at the end of 2024 is probably reasonably close. But we will work on updating the reserve balances and get that out to the directors before the end of the year, so you can see where the reserves sit and where they're broken out to by service.
DeBoon, and then we'll go to the next slide.
Thank you. And I certainly agree with the comments here, and especially Director McClure-Cole. And I look at this list and I haven't seen or heard a single suggestion on what we would do with this list to change it, because it appears to me that what we're doing here keeps pace with what we need to do and what we've discussed as a board and agreed to in the past. So again, I would be interested if there are suggestions on how to change that. But through the chair, my question to you is the loss of 85K of revenue from the town of Preston for IT services means we don't get them from RDCK anymore. But so you've lost $85,000. But wouldn't that mean you have also a reduction in need? That would also be a bit of a budget savings instead of just losing $85,000?
Through the chair, yes, there's been some reduction. We've reduced some of our licensing costs and licensing fees. The challenge, I think, it was last budget season brought up, well, that's almost a staff person, reduce it by a staff person, but that charge of $85,000 is spread over all of the staff, and there isn't, well, the actual cost of providing the service is less than $85,000, right? So it was we have an IT department, we'll share the cost this way, and the additional work required for Preston, I would say the cost was not $85,000, it was probably in the neighborhood of, and $85,000 was a partial year, so full year is about 150. So I don't know if I had to guess, the actual cost of the providing variable service was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30,000, and we probably reduced at least half of that by reducing licenses.
That's it for the speakers list. I just want to note, in general admin, if we're talking about cutting services, the only thing on this this slide that is not noted that is a part of this is rural director. Part of our stipend is also in general admin, but that would be if we're talking, if we want to cut services to reduce taxation, that's what we would be doing in general admin, not rural directors, but that's what you're looking at. We're not necessarily, we can talk about CSLAC and cutting that, but that doesn't affect general admin. So again, remembering in an RD model, we go by service, not to lose track of, if you want 0%, you got to start talking about where we cut. Not proposing anything, just summarizing. Please continue, Yep.
Okay.
Oh, were you on the list?
Yeah, I have put my hand up, but it's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, excuse me, I wanted to say a couple of things. When you see 52% increase, you go, oh my God. But then you have to go through the rest of the slide. You have to go through the line item budgets. You have to look at the services we're providing. You have to look at what was increased and what was decreased. And you have to look at how it's going to affect the cost per $100,000 of value. I also want to say that Vancouver's 0% increase on taxes was an election stunt, and it's not a realistic budget aspiration unless you're willing to cut services, just cut them out, stop doing them, shut down that rec center, close that park, don't do, water and wastewater. That's the only way to get to 0%. And with the difference between a municipality and a regional district as well. You're right, communication. We have 20 directors sitting around this table who need to be communicating. It can't just all be corporate. We need to find the language to communicate with our constituents as well. Thanks.
If anyone does want that budget 101, it was recorded last year and it's on YouTube. We can circulate that again if that is one of the, things you might want to share with your councils or other people. Okay, yeah, please continue. That was 15 minutes for one slide, just noting the time, which is fine. This is the whole beginning of the conversation.
Okay, slide 2 on S100. So the proposed capital projects are 180,000 for IT hardware, including personal computer refresh, server backup data drives, and the phone system hardware replacement, and 81,000 for Lakeside office improvements, including security system upgrades, so carpet replacement, and continuing to refresh this boardroom. Those two items are both funded from reserves. S100 proposed non-capital projects, $100,000 for phase 2 of the organizational review. We're expecting the phase 1 report, which will provide some recommendations, planning to have that done in January 2026. And available to the board. And another large project on capital is $140,000 for just a partial migration to SharePoint for document and records management, and then the $60,000 for the migration to Unit 4. The first two items, the 100 and the 140, would be funded through taxation. The 60 would be part of the surplus carryover that I mentioned earlier. As requested by the board, account 59,500 was further broken down, transferred to other service into more detail. And as you look into the 2026 plan, there's about I believe 7 accounts there versus where we used to have 3. So not only I think it increases the transparency to the board, provides information. It also helps with the compilation of the plan and helps finance and budget directors balance out the budget. So 2 upsides there. And last item on S100, we have a new asset management allocation service, A122. So 3% of that budget is being charged to S100. Based on proportional asset values starting next year.
Hewitt.
Thank you through the chair. I'm going to ask this and maybe forestall some of the questions, but the S100 non-capital. I'm going to ask the question, but I think I know the answer. That if that is an area that directors might want to look to for reduction in the budget, will that have cost implications in other areas because we're not utilizing the full effectiveness of the new programs that we all have started to utilize? Right? These are necessary things that not implementing them and not funding those things will have very negative impacts on the organization.
Through the chair to various degrees. So the $60,000 migration Unit 4, we put that off as long as possible. So they basically gave us notice if we don't start soon, they're going to increase the price of and the cost of doing that, as well as increase the annual licensing fee they're suggesting to us. So to me, that one is a no-brainer. The $140,000 for the migration to SharePoint, we're going to have to do that at some point in time. The further we kick it down the road, the less efficiencies we're going to see with our staff. This $140,000, that's 1 year of probably 3, so we're looking upwards of probably somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 to do that migration. So spreading it out over longer periods is not going to make sense because you're going to have some staff in their foot in the new door and some in the old. So we believe, you know, somewhere between 2 and 3 years is accurate time to do it, and to as well, you know, gain the efficiencies with Microsoft's technology, with artificial intelligence and everything. It relies heavily on the use of SharePoint, and doesn't work well or nearly as well with our current file system. And then there's also the documents and records management piece too. And Stuart, do you want to speak to the organizational review?
Yep, through the chair. So we're just in the process of awarding the project. The RFP closed a little while ago. Got a fantastic response and some really qualified firms. So we're really looking forward to how this is going to roll out. There's going to be a workshop proposed for the board as part of that process. Yeah, like it says there, report expected in January 2026. And from that point, you know, we could have options for the board to look at the next phase. I'd say that of all the items there, that's probably the one that would be most discretionary for the board. But we wanted to put it in there to say that it is something we've thought of, and probably be best to take a look at that report in January before you start to think about what you want to do next, if anything.
Go ahead, yeah.
Through the chair, as well as the SharePoint project we'd be bringing forward, we're going through the process of a pilot. We're doing water utilities as one department right now. And once we complete that pilot, we'll have a better idea of what future costs will entail. So we also bring a report forward to the board either in January or February, better detailing the costs and the plan for the larger rollout of SharePoint to the whole organization.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got David off, but on the capital question, I'm curious. I know it's coming from reserves, but has there been direction to staff that wherever items might qualify for community works that you would seek input from the board on their support for that? I don't recall if we did that last year or not, or if they were one-offs.
Yeah, so we often, like for general administration, administration related costs and specifically head office costs generally don't qualify. But staff throughout the other services are aware of what potential projects might qualify for community works.
Thank you. Director Davidoff, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And you actually asked the question that I was thinking about was the community works piece. When we talk about a partial migration, like what is the total cost of the full migration? Like what percentage of migration to Unit 4 or SharePoint, whatever, like what percentages are we covering and what percentages are still outstanding? Through the chair.
Yeah, through the chair, the 140 is roughly about a third. So we're expecting the program to go, or the migration to last somewhere between 2.5 and 3 years. So about $400,000 for the full migration. We're going to do as much of the work in-house as we can. So part of the pilot project and the initial migration would be training our staff to do as much of the migration as possible. So there might be some opportunities to reduce some of that cost. When we bring the board report forward in early next year, we'll talk a bit about that. But it also might entail we can knock $100,000 off of this, but it might require spending $50,000 on some supplementary or staff. So there could be opportunities to reduce that. The migration for Unit 4 is it's a one-time item. So this is actually closer to 80, so we're going to spend about 20 of that, which is approved in this year's budget, and then 60,000 to complete that next year and go live in the cloud version early next summer after we've completed our budgets and our year-end process.
So Chair, a supplemental, if I may.
Yes.
So again, can you just confirm on the Community Works Fund piece? Like capital projects, like the 180 for IT, would that qualify or not? Did you say no?
Through the chair, that's correct, no.
Okay, how about the lakeside office improvements?
Through the chair, no. Administrative office, administration office projects do not qualify for community works.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Jackman, and then let's keep going with the slides. Oh, sorry, didn't see you. Jackman, then Vandenberg, and then we'll keep going.
Sure, this does tie through the chair back to what I was just mentioning. We're spending $250,000 here, $500,000 there on this IT type stuff, programs, software, whatever, for efficiencies. It's one word used. And if you look at, ending year, I'm just gonna pick one of, there's a page that shows the totals by all accounts for all services. Doesn't tend to get put in this book, but we will project 2026 salaries and benefits with a bit of overtime on the high side of 30 million. So as we do a pilot project, realizing we're only doing one little water services one, I would hope that the efficiencies we've anticipated by this, what might end up being a few $1 million of investment in migration and licensing fees and all of this to make us more efficient, that are we going to ask the manager, department by department, the general manager, to project reduction in future staff requirements based on these theoretical efficiencies, which is justifying spending a few $1 million on two licensing. So is that part of the pilot project? And then will we see that this year for that department as the best estimate? Or are we gonna just wait 5 years? We've got to start showing the public why we use the word for efficiencies without projecting exactly where those efficiencies are going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, fair question. So no, we don't have any planned reduction in staff currently for these projects. Again, they're spread over probably 250 staff that will be utilizing this this software. So I would say efficiencies, it would be difficult to say, oh, there's one position that we can reduce in one department, is not likely to happen. It probably equates to more work being done by the same amount of people.
If I might, a brief supplemental, matrix management is the solution of that. I think admin is great at that. We're cross-departmental use of people who have knowledge, skills. Project management is dipping into where they have to, asset management. So you should be projecting the percentage decrease in overall staff cost as the efficiency. And then the general managers and CEO can work out how you structure the organization through this efficiency review we're doing in the actual organizational review to ensure you're not leaving anybody with skills, knowledge, whatever, and time sitting off to the side where they would be, not that they have nothing else to do, but they would do something else of higher value more quickly once you're fully integrated as matrix management for this office. That's just the way businesses work.
Thank you. Vandenberg.
Thank you. So on that third bullet, it refers to the modifications to account 59,500. Is that currently reflected in this financial plan, starting at 59,502? Or is that something that we're going to get? And that's talking about the new accounts in that new set of range numbers. Is that currently what we're looking at now, but it starts with 59,502? Question, I guess, yeah.
Through the chair, yes, it's part of the package. the two financial plans for us, 100 and 102, now have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 accounts versus, 4 before.
Okay.
So that, we've done that breakout in this first iteration.
Okay, thank you.
So you have 2 more slides. We're averaging about 50 minutes per slide, so I might get a little more tight on the next 2 slides so we can hit public time at 11:45. So let's go for 2 slides and discussion within 15, ideally. And then if we don't have public time, we can elaborate. Does that work? I just want to give, I want to respect the 11:45. Please continue, yeah.
So actually, this is the last slide. So S101 is one slide on that. Rural administration. So this service includes bylaw, rural director expenses, and election expenses. The big change you will notice in S101 this year is we pulled out regional fire overhead, which made up roughly about half or more than half of this budget, and we moved it to service A107. So that's dramatically shifted how this service looks. But the requisition is actually has decreased versus the requisition from last year. So where the shared portion of regional fire overhead that belongs in service S101 is now in account 59,707. So that's about $81,000 of the regional fire service is now charged to S101. It's shown there as one item instead of being buried in amongst the pluses and minuses that we had in prior years. So as I mentioned, projected $88,000 or 5% decrease in requisition. One of the main items in the budget, $87,000 planned for electoral area election costs in 2026. This amount is largely offset by transfers from election reserves that we set aside each year through the non-election years. And there's no capital projects planned in the S101 for 2026.
Thank you. So we have David Jackman, Weatherhead. Quick question. So does that mean our fire services will carry that overhead? I wasn't sure what S101, where that was going.
Yeah, so at A107 is going to carry all the costs of our regional fire, and then it'll get distributed out to all the individual fire services.
Okay, so that's where we'll see it.
Yeah, A107 will.
Going up. Okay, yeah. Thank you. David.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So by my calculation, 20% of our projected 2026 budget in Service 101 are directors' allowance and stipend, and then when you add up all the other expenses and things like that, it pushes it over 20%. So have we ever done an analysis of directors, I guess this would be rural directors' expenditures, and come up with ideas how we can reduce those through the chair?
Through the chair, I think this would fall under the scope of the remuneration committee that's currently working through the remuneration bylaw. In rural admin, the expenses are pretty much limited to rural directors attending the KBLG and the $1,000 per director rural allowance. So in 2026, you can see the $17,000, which was slightly under budgeted in 2025, but the 17 is for AKBLG attendance for the 11 rural directors. And then the $11,000 is $1,000 per director for the rural allowance. Beyond that, it's most of the director's expenses are in general admin, FCM, UBCM, board expenses, etc.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. It's good to know the remuneration committee, I believe, was directed to also consider a conference policy, conference attendance policy, so that is within their discussions at this time. We did have a review on director stipends throughout the province, but that was, I believe, 2 terms ago. So not sure how relevant that is, but I do recall we looked at that. And we did reduce the rural allowance from 2,500 to 1,000, I believe, last year, and that's always one of our very discretionary, we could cancel it altogether. So Jackman, Weatherhead, then Lockwood.
Thank you. So the shift to 887 for fire services doesn't mean there's less money being collected. It's just, I feel more equitable. Anybody who has fire coverage has savings in their house insurance and the comfort of being closer to having someone come to help them out when they need to help. So that's just equitable. What I did want to point out is that this might look like a reduction of sorts. However, we had from 2024 to 2025 a 24% jump in S101. So over 2 years now, we only have an 18% jump. So it's not as if for municipal directors, rural admin is flying high. We are over 2 years only 18%. It's just we seem to have this trend of going up and down and up and down. I can't think of why, but anyway, that's the longer story.
Thank you. Weatherhead.
Thank you. I think possibly this was partially answered on the regional fire overhead costs. In that allocation service A107, is that distributed amongst the areas that have that fire service and then not to those areas that is in different, is that how it's how it is paid into? Reflective of whether you have fire service or not.
Yeah, through the chair, most of it is charged directly to the roughly 25 fire services. So it's allocated out to the fire halls. A portion, as I mentioned, about $82,000 is charged to S101 from the perspective of the regional fire services, providing sort of general fire administration to all rural areas, whether they have a fire service or not.
Interesting supplemental.
Yes.
Just may I ask, is there a reason that's set up that way? Is there operationally, maybe I'm confused, maybe we just need to understand a bit better, because for a lot of areas where they don't have fire service, what they would be paying specifically for.
Stuart.
So through the chair, we often get calls from the fire brigades, particularly in Area K.
Yeah.
For our regional fire service, so that would go to support things like that. There's some road rescue societies, Boswell, for example, that we support through that charge to rural admin. The fire service, so when the A107 budget is presented, you'll see fire service fee coming in, which is all of our operational fire departments pay a fee. And the way that fee is calculated is all of the assistant fire chief, deputy fire chief costs get allocated out. The portion that stays in rural admin is roughly 25% of the administration. So the admin assistants within fire services and of the regional fire chief, because they're usually the one that's dealing with the support of those programs. So that was a board decision made a number of years ago that, okay, yep, the deputies are there to support the halls. And there is some, because we are not wall-to-wall fire service, there's an acknowledgement that there is some support to these groups. Hills is another one where there's support provided to those independent groups that aren't funded by taxation, but then also the Fauquier, Edgewood, Burton groups that are funded by taxation. We do provide that support even from an operational standpoint. So that's where that came from.
Right, thank you.
Lockwood.
Thank you. Mine's gonna be under staff for both the rural admin and excuse me, and the I guess the F100 general admin. In the rural admin, it goes down roughly $84,000. But in the general admin, it goes up $68,000. I understand that there's CPI, but why would rural admin go down $84,000?
Through the chair, it's a larger decrease in S101 than 80 in the budget. So last year's 2025 budget was 1.3 million, and the current budget is 550.
Oh yeah, sorry, 183 or something. Yeah. Why is there
$800,000 reduction, and that's mainly due to all the the regional fire, services staff being pulled out into A107.
Oh, that's where that is. Okay, okay. I just wondered how that all fit in. Thank you. Okay, sorry.
No, all good. All right. Yeah. So for the questions, do you have more?
No, that is the end of the presentation.
Okay. So we can just summarize a couple of the things that were takeaways. One is we flagged the policy on not only surplus slash accounted for, there was a different word, sorry, allocation, sorry, allocated, so that we're not spending money, especially operational funds that would then have to be picked up the following year. So looking at a policy on that, as well as on asset management, and that was one I just wanted to circle back to, because where are we at with the asset management policy? I believe we've done it by resolution, you said, but there is something regarding the asset management plan that recommended policy.
Yeah, through the chair, there'll definitely be policy coming forward as part of the asset management plan. It's gonna vary by service.
Yeah.
Or it could not. There could be agreement amongst the entire board that all recreational assets are gonna follow this. All resource recovery assets are gonna follow this. We have an asset management in place for our water systems. We have asset management in place under administration, as I mentioned, vehicle, IT, and this building. However, rudimentary for the building and IT, we still have something. But I think that that's gonna be the bigger discussion, because you could get at Crescent Valley Services and talk about the asset management for the assets you've got there, and a completely different discussion happens in Nelson ENF Recreation or Castlegar IJ. And when you come to the board table, it doesn't quite align, and you might want to take different paths, but that's kind of the way that the realm works when you've got an area as large as we do and are dealing with different subregions the way that we do. So yes, that'll definitely come forward as part of that. If it's something where you were wanting to look at something different for the 2026 budget, take a look at these documents, and if you wanted to suggest a change, next month would probably be the best. I don't know if Yev can speak to what the plan is for November in terms of what's coming next. But that's probably the last thing that I think should be mentioned.
So I think just on the asset management, a good kind of foundation is when you look at our resource recovery, we mentioned it yesterday, Central went for zero taxation for several years, and now we're picking that up. So that's where you're gonna see those differences, that one policy that addresses all kind of negates the fact that we're all doing things and we have done things differently. So those will be the nuances we need to consider when we look at a policy versus by service. There was another thing noted. Essentially, you want to reduce taxation. I think we do need to be really mindful about where do you want to see that. And I think a critical question that we weren't really able to get to the dollars last year was that the day of the budget, a lot of the reductions we made generally would not have actually been registered on the tax bill, because they were maybe 0.001 cent per thousand. So when we're thinking about that, it's really good to think about what is the actual difference at the end of the tax bill to make sure that all the effort you're putting in is going to get to the goal you're getting to. And that's where staff can help you look at those things. When you look at those pie charts and our budget presentations, it'll show you if it's a big piece of the pie, that might be where you want to focus for the biggest bang per buck. Any other questions at this time, or we'll ask Yev what the next step is?
Okay,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hewitt. I can tell. Go ahead.
No, it wasn't a question. It was just a comment and a thank you for breaking out those transfers. That is very helpful. Because I don't think that had been said yet.
Thank you.
That's appreciated.
Okay, thank you. And we will see those in other services as well. So hopefully that helps. So November, we will look at a few other core services, planning, GIS, building and emergency services. So a 100. So those budgets will be brought forward in November, and we'll have the staff there to discuss those in November. And then in December, our plan is to have a list of capital projects that would be brought forward for approval, so that we can start the procurement process for some of those. And then in January, the plan is to have a consolidated budget brought to the board. I don't think we've booked a special budget meeting yet, so talk to Christine and see what the availability is to do that. So if we're going to have a dedicated budget meeting, we'll probably do that in January. Last year we had one in February, and I think the feedback was that didn't necessarily work the best. So we'll try to get back to a January meeting, and at which point we'll have a consolidated budget for review. And then after the board's approved that, and we've not necessarily approved that, but provided feedback, the actual budget approval will still be in March. Then we will do public presentations based on the January consolidated budget plus any other changes suggested by the board or committees after that.
Thank you. And I was remiss in mentioning the communication request. So what I'd like to request is, I know Dan's on the line, and Dan Elliott, if we can include in this month's board highlights the Budget 101 recording that is on YouTube for the public, but also not necessarily for the board highlights, but for directors. I ask your team to circulate everyone's budget presentation from last year to those directors so they can get a review on the kind of pie charts that we use to assess where our big hits are. Is that helpful to everybody? Okay. All right. And we are at public time. Great work, everybody. So I pause now. We did have 2 members of the public in the audience, and they have departed, so there's no questions from them. I will go online to see if anyone from the member of the public and or media would like to ask a question. You can unmute and go ahead. We'll ask one more time. No, it's Christine's hand.
Oh, icon.
I'm gonna take a moment to just acknowledge the Valley Voice, who I recently read is going to be ending within the month. And Rachel, if you're there, I just want to say thank you to you. And if you're just recording, oh, you unmuted.
It's been my pleasure.
Very sorry to see you go. You have been a great asset to our region. So that's unfortunate. Valley Voice is up north, so if you guys don't see it on the East Shore, it's mostly. Oh, you see it. Good.
Yeah. Where are they going?
They've had it for sale for quite some time. Rachel, did you want to provide us any info on what's happening? Go ahead.
Sure. Dan and Jen are just getting tired, and there haven't been any interested buyers, so they're going to be continuing until the end of the year. If someone steps up in that time, great. They have some different vendor financing options and things like that. You can check out their website, valleyvoice.ca, for info on that. But if nobody steps up, they're going to be stopping publishing.
Thank you for that, Rachel. And so sorry, but maybe we'll get some word out there too. Very important. It's one of the last independent media sources we have. Okay, Councillor Woodward, we just want to acknowledge you're there.
Just listening.
Okay. All right then, no other questions. Do we want to go for a couple more motions and then break at noon? All right, 6.4.2, these are the UBCM convention notes. Thank you so much to Mike, who's not here at this time, and Stuart for putting these notes together. I'm just gonna pull them up and see if I can jog my memory. So I think I'll just do a quick review on each of them very quickly. I do want to acknowledge cell phone levies 911. Not Minister Nina, I forget her last name. Who we met with was quite grateful to hear from us in terms of understanding how those changes have occurred between landline levies versus cell phone levies. It is a federal issue as well as provincial, so I think that was the big takeaway in terms of political advocacy, was really noting this for the advocacy days. Director Hewitt and Director Main, cell phone levies is a really critical aspect of us being able to continue to provide these services. That is a tax hit we've acquired. I'll go through each one and then just see if there's any questions for us. Area K water systems, really grateful how detailed that was. The outcome on that is staff is going to work with staff from BC Hydro to present the asset management plan I think the big takeaway for me on that one was asbestos piping is really expensive, and the old way of building water systems makes new water systems very expensive. It's quite a complex situation, so I appreciate Director Weatherhead and Mike met with them, and we both met with them as well. So we had 2 meetings with them, which was really great. Orphan dikes and underfunded programs to support repair. This was a quick and very heavily detailed one. I want to thank all the directors who came. Director Vandenberg was there as well as the executive. Perhaps someone else is there. It's in the list. It was definitely received as not surprising to them, but I think the numbers made a big difference for them to grasp the magnitude of this issue. And they did, again, this was another one referenced for federal advocacy as well, because they have to, a lot of their funding comes through federally. It's kind of a joint effort. So the management of dikes alone, we made a good case. They heard it. They asked, please go federal as well. And it helps them bring more dollars to the table. So they weren't unaware, but the numbers help them really grasp how much we're dealing with here. Agricultural Land Reserve. We've been having this conversation for as long as I've been at this table. And I don't know that we really move the needle, but we keep making the point. The outcome from that one was really, if there is a way to work with, we keep asking them to do the review, and they keep saying, you do the review. We kind of bounce back and forth between agrologists are not our specialists. We didn't create this ALR. I think the opportunity, if I could call it that came out was working with some of the colleges and or research development institutes, the RDI, on reviewing soil capability. And they said, do it on a, every time when you do a plan review, and we kind of had to remind them we have, I think, at least 11 areas that could do that and the timeline on it. So it wasn't necessarily efficient. So we haven't backed down on that one, I guess is the good news. We're still trying. For remote and rural healthcare, that would have been hospital board, so I won't reference that one. Galena Trail to erect sites and trails, that would have been Director Popoff, so his notes are there. And the inland ferries, both, there's 3 of us who were canceled out, so I did not make that meeting, but great notes, and we just approved the 2 letters that we also approved to go forward. And then EMCR we referenced when we talked about the policy. Stuart, is there anything you want to add at this time?
No, don't think so.
Directors, do you have questions on any of these? I'm not on the Zoom here. Okay. I think I mentioned it in my director's report for UBCM, but it really, I think it's important to note as the chair that for the amount of years we've been going to UBCM, we are really well respected at UBCM. We can walk down the hall and we have great connections, great relationships. And I think that by my 5th or 6th year, I realized things take a really, really long time to happen. That relationship is everything to making changes. So I feel like we're, even though it's a slow progress, things like the ALR and things like the dikes, we kind of skip a lot of that relationship building at this point, and now we're able to jump into conversations. And I think it's, I want to give kudos to this board, to our CAO for those relationships we've built over the years, and how well received it is at the provincial level. Director Weatherhead, go ahead.
Kudos to our chair as well, and found even relationship building you've been able to accomplish over the years is actually really bode well for us.
You're welcome. And to the executive, Aiden and Jackman, sorry, Mugner and Co. and Jackman, reviewing our notes and preparing. There's a lot more prep I do in advance for a 15-minute meeting, but it's so we're going for it. So thank you. Lockwood, and then, yep.
Very quickly, was there anything said about when you guys talked about the dikes is the speediness of the provincial and federal government of okaying work? Was any of that conversation? Because I can say that in Samuel, we were ready to do work because 18 months until I phoned a staff member and said, hey, and it was only because I had a personal connection with that person. But they just, when it seems like it just gets put because provincial and federal fight this way and we suffer their consequences. So was there anything that was said at the provincial level over that relationship?
I will just, any directors that were in that meeting with me, Stuart was double booked for that meeting, so he wasn't there. We did not raise necessarily the timeline as much as we raised the administrative burden to constantly having to apply in the limitations. I think they really registered not only is it beyond capacity in terms of affordability, but the bureaucracy is also an issue, which I think would have tied to that. Anyone in that meeting recall something specific Director Lockwood's speaking to? Okay. Sorry, Director Lockwood.
No, that's okay.
Okay. All right, so do we want to do motions for grants? All right, let's go discretionary. Anybody like to move a motion?
I'll move it.
Graham, discussion? We're all good. Thank you to those who checked their grants in advance. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Community development. With area H added in, go ahead, Papa.
Now I'll move that.
Thank you. Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have one correction for W.E. Graham. Is that, I think that's you as well, Director Popoff? No. Oh, Director Lennon, she's not here. Would someone like to move it? Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'll go ahead with our chair. Did you have a verbal report?
I've just got one.
Okay, so we might as well go ahead and do these then. I will start by recognizing retiring staff John Purdy, development technician in the Creston office. Is he online or do we have any information? No, okay. Yep, they do. I will send it to you. Well.
Do that for lunch.
Okay, we'll share some notes on that after lunch. I don't have them right now. I think I did the UVCM kind of overview, so that would be the primary thing as chair. We did have another meeting with the local government advisory committee on EDMA. I'll share some notes with you on that one and a little later in the agenda. And I believe that was it for me. Go ahead, yeah.
So through the chair, I wanted this open because I wanted it recorded and I wanted you all to hear it. We are not accepting anything to do with ostriches at any of our facilities. We have not heard from the CFIA since you passed that motion in May. Full stop. So if you get any emails, anybody suggesting they've heard in the community or they've heard from somebody, the answer is no. We have not been contacted. We are not accepting them. Full stop. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Go ahead, Hewitt.
I thought it would be mentioned, but because I'm on the CBT board and I know it was in one of the highlights documents, but recognizing Alex LaFleur for being recognized as one of the CBT 30 under 30. So I thought that was awesome.
That was, and thank you for doing that. I meant to acknowledge him yesterday because he was in our joint meeting. Letter added community reception alternative. I'm sorry, Christine, what is the community reception alternative was added to the addenda? Do you know what that is?
Yeah, that's your letter. To BC Hydro.
Oh my, thank you. BC Hydro, that's what I needed in there. So yes, I need to just let you know the executive, so BC Hydro is hosting a reception October 21st, I believe it is, in Rossland. And we were aware of this through the local government committee for Columbia River Treaty, and it became a conflict for many folks. And we also recognize that not everybody was invited. So via the LGCCRT, local government Columbia River Treaty Committee, RDKB, RDCK, and Columbia Shoe Shop was requesting that they come to their board as a delegation as an option. So I have sent that letter on behalf of this board without seeking board because it's just asking for them to come as a delegation. And I'm so sorry. Thank you, Christine. I had to tell you that. So should they accept that, you will see them as a delegation in the future and we can discuss all the things we need to with them. Hewitt? Oh, okay. So when I'm second stuff, I'm like, you have a question or something? Go. Okay. I think we'll break for lunch. We'll come back and do rule affairs. Yes, Christine.
Please send you an email, John Purdy.
Okay. We'll do that one right after lunch. Thank you, Christine. Thanks, everybody. See you in an hour. All right, everybody, we are back. Just check in. Director Davidoff, are you present? Okay, we know Director Fife is gone for about an hour, I think she said. Okay. I think we can go ahead and start. You know, Director Lockwood, anyone? Just Director Cunningham is missing. Okay. So here's the information on John Purdy. He's retiring from his position as a development technician at the Creston office. I'd like to congratulate John on reaching the milestone of retirement. He brought extensive experience to his role with the RDCK. For any of you that have dealt with John, his experience is present in his words, accompanied by his polite demeanor with staff and public. Thank you, John, for your dedication and work ethic with the building department. You will be missed. His last day of office was October 10th, so thus he is not present. Do you know how many years he was with us?
10, the chair, 10.
10. I do think I recall him as a building inspector. Okay. All right then. Yes, if anyone has, there's light that gets in that can be difficult for some, feel free to adjust what you need to. All right. Rule affairs.
Thanks, Chair. So as usual, the board authorizes rule affairs to receive delegations on land use applications or matters. Yesterday, we had delegations in person, represented by one, Kevin Johnson, and a delegation remotely from Italy, apparently, with Frank Glanson during the meeting. I almost want to move these as a block, but they didn't work out in joint, so let's do one at a time. So I want to move the first recommendation arising from item 7.1, development variance permit, Knox and Johnson, electoral area F. Move the board approve the issuance of the development variance permit, even 2505F, to Lisa Knox and Kevin Johnson for the property as described, in order to permit a 0 meter setback from the front lot line, whereas the flat out requires 4.5 meters, and a 1.9 meter setback from the side lot line, whereas the flat out requires 2.5 meters setback.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. If you can block them, I don't think it's. Take a chance, I'll leave it to you.
I'll block the next two, the vote, all vote. It's recommendation to support an application to agricultural land reserve. Or construct the other one's community works fund application, Ag Beach from We'll leave the block as presented.
Second, Leatherhead, thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Just for the interest of the municipal directors, I want to thank Director May, who's been coming to our Rural Affairs Committee for several years. Yeah. But there was a couple presentations specifically on Bill 44 and the impacts in our rural areas. Municipal directors might find it interesting to see where we landed with that and some of the conflicts in terms of all of our varying issues. You might find it fascinating, so you're welcome to see that on the Rural Affairs agenda, which would be on the website. And FYI for you and any municipal directors that would like to attend anytime, you are welcome. Okay, consent agenda for information. Is there any of the 8.1 section we need to pull for discussion, edits, corrections? Seeing none. 8.2 for information, there is the presentation from the New Horizon Society I mentioned earlier. There was also a letter from Christine Boyle further on the small scale unit, multi-unit housing. Anything we need to pull for discussion? Vandenberg.
Just to follow up on that letter, we had a pretty robust discussion when it comes to those elements within the planning that's changing, that sort of thing. So this SSMU, I think I got that right. It just looks like, okay, now here's another one. And then, so I'm kind of wondering, okay, then what's next? Then we have another, when's this gonna end? Why can't we just get a suite of these changes delivered to us so that we can look at the whole thing as a whole? As opposed to, so does our ADHC people need to then come in and look at that and, and then the next layer or the next new idea comes in and do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm a little bit concerned that this piecemealing is going to become very divisive and quite, I hope that it just doesn't become pushback-ish because some of them might be good ideas, but can we get them all delivered to us at one time? And then of course, relax on the time frame. I believe this one, if I read it correctly, was till June, but that stuff sneaks up on us really fast. So my comment on that, it's almost like, can we send a letter saying to them, get it all together, deliver it in one suite, and we'll have a look at it. You know what I mean?
We can. I don't think we can send a letter. I don't know how much it would impact them, but I get your point. I just want to note I think you meant APHCs, not ADHCs.
Is that what I said?
Which was, kind of appropriate to the context of what we're talking about. Stuart, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Through the chair, I think that particularly this letter, because the focus is so much on servicing the subdivision bylaw process, will definitely assist in supporting the areas where this might be an issue. Yeah.
I think because that's under review right now and servicing is one of our big constraints, it'll fall into line with that one.
And if I may, I understand too, one of my colleagues pointed out to me the nature of the conservatives, the Conservation Act. Just started reading about it. And I'm getting it wrong, I know, but it's the Historic Heritage Conservation Act.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that adds another dimension into decision making at a local level. And what is that going to look like? It's just, you just keep paddling down the river and just see where the river goes.
I think the critical note, and the HCA is not obviously this item, but I get the cumulative of what you're referencing. The engagement process on the HCA was identified in the UVCM presentation, that is available, and I would strongly recommend we all engage at that point. And it is generally myself as a director, that's what I'm like, do you guys ever talk about how many things you're getting us to pick up on? Shouldn't go down too much of a rabbit hole with that one, but yes, I think use the engagement process to provide that feedback. And we are always, able to do that as elected officials. There's more, I just saw another engagement and I'll just stop there. Anyways.
Chair, can I just add one thing, please?
Yes.
On 8.2.1, two of the people that represented Blue Horizons were here first thing this morning.
Oh, that's okay.
And so I think they were here just to see that that motion was brought here and passed, and then they left, so that's why they were here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions on accounts payable?
Better.
Okay. Director's reports, we did verbal last month, so these are received for your information. Lots of details in there. Public time we've done. We're closed. All right. Motion to close the meeting to the public. Thank you. Do we have a second? Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Goodbye, Valley Boys. Trisha, you sticking around? I believe you are. Okay. Thank you, Sangeeta, for turning your camera on. Thank you, Director Davidoff. Meeting coordinator, is that you, Christine?
Yeah.
Okay, observer, if you can sign up. Thank you, as always, for your presence. And Valley Boys, Rachel, if you're listening, thank you. Director Popoff, do you want to sign off or turn your camera on, either or?
I am struggling with.
There you go.
turning my
Hello.
Camera on, there we go.
Okay. Point to when you get a chance, can you just let Director Fike know that he'll have to email you when he wants to come back?